The time is 4:01. Present are Mary McGann. I'm getting the participants right. Mary McGann, Commissioner Mary McGann, Commissioner Tricia Dean, Evan Clapper, Jacques Hadler. Is Gabriel on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Gabriel, okay. Gabriel, Wojtek, and Sarah Stock. I think that's everyone. We have a complete commission this evening. We also have our county to administer. Oh, and Kevin Walker. Kevin Walker is also present, commissioner. We also have our county administrators, Chris Baird and Mallory Nassau, and our county clerk, Quinn Hall. I will begin the meeting. Citizens to be heard. Are there any citizens to be heard? It does not appear as though there are any citizens to be approved. I would entertain a motion to approve for the approval of the minutes of January 5th, 2021.
So moved.
And who was motion by Evan Clapper, seconded by Jacques Hadler. Discussion. Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes unanimously. Ratification of bills. I entertain a motion to ratify the bills for the Thompson Springs Special Fire District. Evan, raise your hand.
So moved.
Okay, I'll read it out. Checks are in AP are $1,169.24. Total bills, $1,169.24. Total bills and payroll are $1,702.58. The motion to approve by Kevin Walker. Do I have a second? Second.
Jacques seconded.
Huh?
I'll second.
Okay, Jacques seconded. This is a roll call vote. Kevin Walker.
Yes.
Gabriel Wojtek.
Aye.
Evan Clapper.
Yes.
Tricia Dean.
Yes.
Jacques Hadler.
Aye.
Sarah Stock.
Aye.
Mary McGann, yes. It passes unanimously. We are to our fire chief's report. I have it right here. On January 6th, he responded to a breathing difficulty, 75 West Old Highway 6 and 50, Thompson Springs. On the 9th, he responded to a sick call on I-70, a motor vehicle accident on I-70, mile marker 212. And on the 16th, a diesel spill on I-70, mile marker 216. All the
Mark is here too.
He is?
Yeah.
Oh, because he normally doesn't say, okay, I didn't. It's hard to see. They don't all come up. Markham, why don't you do the report? I was just reading what you sent me.
Hi, sorry, everything went out for a minute there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I take it you just read the incidents. That's great. I just want to make something clear where I wrote down the incidents. I'm just putting on the incidents that occur in my area where I'd be the quickest to respond. Just so you know what's going on out here. Then I put who responded. So I only responded to the breathing difficulty one. I'm not always around, but I just want to show all the incidents in this area so that you understand how much is going on out here as far as that goes. You want me to continue with the report?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All our apparatus is functional right now, so that's great. Things are working good. As far as training goes, on the 13th, I had a hazmat training with Moab Valley Fire Department and other members of, I think there's one member from the Moab Police Department. We're trying to ramp up the hazmat team here in Grand County, so that's kind of an ongoing thing. And then on the 17th, a couple of days ago, I had an engine and hydrant operations training here at the fire department. On the 14th, I did a food truck safety inspection at the Desert Moon campground here in town. They're hoping to open that food truck in spring. And then that same day, we had the Thompson Springs Fire Danger Tour with the Community Action Team and board/commission members, Mary McGann and Trisha Hedin. And also Chief Brewer was out here, Andy Smith, the Director of Grand County EMS. And we also had a sheriff's deputy out here. We just basically took a tour of the town for the people who haven't seen it, to point out some of the issues, the problems, the fire danger we have out here, and look at the recent fire that we had a couple weeks ago, and then talk about maybe some possible solutions. The CAT team is ongoing. We're having meetings basically about weekly right now to try to find some solutions to that. And I don't know if Mary or Tricia, you have anything you want to say about that?
Trish?
No, I just thought it was a great collaboration, having everybody out there and just looking at what Mark is dealing with as far as the fire issues that are surrounding that community and how we can mitigate them. In the end, Mary and I kind of discerned that it's going to take quite a bit of effort, a lot of money in the end. So we'll have to start kind of thinking about that. But I think in the end, they're starting to come up with ways to, work with waste management and deal with some of that fire hazard out there. Do you want to add anything, Mary?
I would like to say that it will be a very big job. I think probably the first thing we can do that we have within our budget is to do a survey and get the things lined up. So I think if we can start to figure out a way to clean up the areas that are not private, the public areas of the community. And I know Orion was planning a hall meeting. Did he set that up yet, Mark? A town meeting?
No, that hasn't been set up yet. We're working the logistics of that out. We're trying to get all our ducks in a row before we do have the community meeting, but it is upcoming.
I think it would be really important for Trish and myself perhaps to attend that. So keep us in the loop.
Absolutely.
The town of Thompson has a great deal of potential, and I hope we can turn it around and make it a pleasant place to live. And that's going to take money.
Yeah, it's definitely a many-pronged attack, but it'll take time, but we got to start somewhere. So that's what we're doing. I appreciate all the participation from the board members and everyone else that came out that day. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mark, can you field some questions?
You bet.
I know that the Grand County Emergency Special Service District and the Moab Valley Fire Department are going in on an emergency manager together that would be separate from the sheriffs, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering if you'd been privy to any of those conversations or if they might play a role in Thompson.
I know about it. I know they're advertising for the job. I don't know what the entire job description is, if it's just for the valley or for the entire county. But yeah, I don't know too much more about that than that.
I mean, it's still a big hope of mine that the Moab Valley Fire Department decides to make moves to include all the places they respond to in their district boundaries. Mm-hmm. And, I think that there's talk with EMS increasing their presence along I-70 based out of Thompson and stuff. So I know while you're talking about all this kind of long range planning and tightening things up and dialing things in, that's kind of one of my pie in the sky, best case scenario sort of ideals. So if there's any opportunity to kind of steer things in that direction, I know that we probably aren't the best fire board for you. So it'd be nice to get some pros dealing with this.
Yeah, and that's definitely something we're looking forward to in the future. Having Thompson Fire be maybe annexed by Mohawk Valley Fire or some kind of conglomeration of that. I can't speak for the Mohawk Valley Fire Department or Grand County EMS, but I'm definitely open to any of that. However, I can help incorporate that or help incorporate Thompson with the bigger picture.
Stick the hook in them, man. Reel them in. Tell them that's what you want.
Yeah, I'm the little fish. They're the big fish. So
you got to make them bite.
yeah.
That was all I had.
Does anybody else have any questions to ask Fire Chief Markham? Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
We don't have any discussion items or closed session. We have reached the end of our meeting. I will adjourn unless someone opposes. Meeting adjourned. The time is 4:12. I will open this Grand County Commission regular meeting. It is being held by Zoom. If you are on the phone, you have to dial *6 to be heard. Present at the meeting are Commissioners Mary McGann, Evan Clapper, Gabriel Wojcik, Sarah Stock, Jacques Hadley, Tricia Dean, and Kevin Walker. We also have our county administrators, Mallory Nassau, Chris Baird, and County Clerk Auditor Quinn Hall. The time is 4:13. We will begin this meeting with a presentation from the Southeastern Utah Health Board. Is Brady here?
I am.
Yes, thank you, Brady.
Thanks, Mary and commissioners. Several of you I haven't met, and happy to take questions at any time. Most of this will be focused on vaccines and vaccine delivery. That seems to be what most people are interested in these days. A quick update on our case status. We really have seen the number of cases decrease pretty significantly in all 3 of our counties. The positive rate of positivity in our testing is still a little bit high. One reason for that, amongst others, is most of the people in Grand County have already been tested once, and so if you're not necessarily a new test, you don't get counted in the denominator. So that at this point, this far into the pandemic, it will kind of tend to push the positivity numbers just a little bit higher, and we're looking to see what we can do to address that. But in terms of kind of raw numbers, they decreased. We have had a few more hospitalizations throughout the county, but overall, Grand County has fared fairly well. We are considering moving most of our contact tracing to the state of Utah and utilizing contact tracers to help with data entry and other things that are needed in moving forward with vaccination clinics. That's not a decision that's been made fully yet, but I think it's important for you to know that that is under consideration for potentially to be implemented in the next couple of weeks. Now, in terms of vaccines, I'll just tell you what we've done so far, what we're planning. Certainly, I've heard some concerns and willing to address those. We've received a total of 1,000 vaccines in our health department, plus an additional 80 that we transferred from our 2 hospitals. So 1,080. Before today we received an additional 500. Those vaccines have been divvied up pretty much by proportion of the groups that were eligible to be vaccinated. So early on, that was only our non-hospital healthcare workers. And most of those in our district work in either Carbon County or Grand County. We have very few non-hospital healthcare workers in Emery County. So they were pretty much split between those 2 counties for the first 2 weeks. And then we incorporated a little bit more into Emery County. And now, as initially our K-12 employees are now eligible to be vaccinated, really now it's pretty much just a proportionate split between the counties. And now we know as well that those that are 70 and older are also eligible. We have, as of last Friday, we had received 1,080 vaccines. We'd given out 1,120. That is due to the fact that we're able to get extra doses out of a 10-dose vial. We're sometimes able to get 11 doses. And actually moving forward, we hope to get an additional really 10% extra as we've learned a little bit about drawing those shots and giving them. And Governor Cox has made it clear that we are to give everything we receive within 7 days. And that's really not a problem for us right now. The demand is so high that those are really snapped up as soon as they're made available. Now, for those that are employed with the school districts, they're working on basically a tiered risk system, and we make a certain number available to those teachers and staff each week, and they're sent in according to that risk system that the school district has come up with. For those that are 70 and older, there are 2 pathways to get an appointment. And that is, one, you can sign up on our website, and that's really encouraged just because we're hoping to get the public in general into that method. Right now, we don't have tons of slots available when we do open them up, but looking forward to the time when we get 1,000 doses, for example, that's where we'll want to fill up to make those appointments. But we recognize, particularly for those that are 70 and older, there are a good proportion that do not, they're not comfortable with the internet. They don't navigate it really well. So for those individuals, we are compiling a list as they call in, and every week there is a certain number of slots available for online appointments and a certain number of slots available to fill in with those that have called in. Right now, in each county that we serve, including Grand County, we are able to administer those vaccines with the staff that we've got on hand. We recognize that that may not always be the case, so we are working just newly with informing those that have expressed interest in being part of our clinics, whether it's nurses from the hospital or paramedics, whatever that may be, to incorporate them into future clinics. Now, this is something that I recently learned had been operating under a little bit of a archaic law that I thought was still in place that is no longer there, that would exclude some of those individuals. That barrier is no longer there, but just to reiterate that with the number of vaccines coming to each county, the nurses we have in place and the staff we have in place to support them has been sufficient. Again, that as the number we get goes up, that changes. As we incorporate second doses, that also changes. But for now, they're all right. One of the issues in Grand County is just the space in our office. So we are looking at shifting to potentially a drive-through clinic, using the parking lot of the new movie theater next door. They've been generous to say whatever we needed there that we could use, and we appreciate that. But we will certainly let those know that are coming that is the case if they are to have that shift. Just addressing really the numbers that we're seeing in the demand between non-hospital healthcare and K-12 employees. That's about 1,500 people in our district. Not everybody wants to get the vaccine. We've seen that hover between 60 and 70%. Those that are 40 or 70 and older, excuse me, is about 4,000 people in our district. So we still have a number of weeks to go before we get through those that want the vaccine there. Certainly, we hope we get increased allotment so that we can get through those groups a little quicker. For us, we particularly want to kind of finish K-12 employees and finish first responders so that we're not kind of fragmented all over the place, and all of our doses can go, or the vast majority of our doses can go to an age group, for example, that's been designated, instead of having to split them here and there. That makes it challenging on a number of different levels. I think is, so I guess one last thing, we do tend to, the plan is for us to open up slots every Wednesday. And we have an email list that people have signed up for. They get notified. Again, that's been frustrating for a lot of people because they'll get on and they're all the slots are gone. They generally fill up in a half hour, but it's pretty much a function of how many we're able to make available. Again, as we're able to dedicate a higher percentage to a specific age group, though, the number of slots will increase, and that will be a little less frustrating. That being said, I haven't yet heard right now we know what we're going to get for 3 weeks, the next 3 weeks. I haven't heard the following week, so I don't know if we're going to have the ability to open up slots for our February 10th clinic tomorrow. We will let the public know that as soon as we know anything. Maybe that's not enough. Maybe that's more information that you wanted, but I'm certainly happy to answer any questions or address concerns that have come to you.
Do any of the commissioners have questions?
I do see one from Elaine. Do we have individuals coming from other counties to Grand for the vaccine appointments? I know in Carbon County, we've had a few. It's a very few. Grand County, I don't think we've had any yet. Generally speaking, as we've discussed this with the other health departments, the general policy is as long as people have an appointment, they're getting vaccinated. Certainly that presents a little bit of a challenge if people are really driving distances and taking up vaccines that supposedly have been allotted to a different county. But if they've got an appointment with us, we're vaccinating them just because so we don't deal with the hassle of trying to verify things and kick people out. We are verifying age, but right now that's pretty much it.
Any other questions? Yes, Jacques?
Where did the data come from that you got for the number or the percentage of people that feel like they want to decline a vaccination or don't want to get a vaccination? I was wondering.
So two sources. One is that's about what we've seen for those that we've opened it up to so far. So it's already gone through our non-hospital healthcare workers and first responders. So that's hovered, that actually group has hovered between about 50 and 60%. Generally, you can say it's a little bit higher in Grand County than Carbon and Emory counties. Our K through 12 employees is between 60 and 70% of those that, and that's coming from surveys that the school districts have done themselves to say who wants to get this. I expect that those that are 70 and older will be higher than 70%. The state of Utah has also done some interest surveys just looking forward since the start of COVID. And interestingly enough, right at the start of COVID, it was those that said that they for sure would get a vaccine or likely to get a vaccine was about 85%. And as of a couple weeks ago, it's down to 60%. So, and that's just a phone interview.
That's surprising and disappointing.
Yeah, it is. Particularly so when sometimes through our health care workers it's not been as high as I would have hoped.
Anyone else have any questions? I know I've heard concerns that President's Day is when Grand County's tourism usually starts to pick up. And a lot of the people who are on the front lines of dealing with tourists are quite concerned, so that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and actually just before this meeting was meeting with the national parks, and that, there's obviously a lot of concern there. And it's really tough because they will see a lot of people if they're on those front lines of tourism. Those that are in our older or higher risk age group, those are the ones generally ending up in the hospital for the most part. There's a lot of claim on the vaccine and it's very valid. And I've said repeatedly, I'd love to be able to give out 1,000 doses a day and just get through all of Grand County in a couple of weeks. And that's unfortunately not our reality right now. And most of how we distribute vaccine right now is governed according to what the state of Utah has indicated.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Sorry if you said this and I missed it, but how many doses per week do you expect to get for the next few weeks?
It will average, as far as we understand now, about 400 per week.
Okay, thanks.
Braden, I was planning on presenting on my report for the Canyonlands Healthcare Special Service District, which is our long-term nursing care facility here in town. They were able to get 99% of the residents there at our facility vaccinated, which is great news. And these are, obviously some of the more frail people in our community, very elderly people, and they reported very little to no adverse reactions to the vaccine. And so in terms of just trying to build confidence in receiving that vaccine, can you also speak to the general success in terms of it's not something you're going to go in and get a vaccine and have necessarily a strong reaction to. Of course, you can't say that for everyone, but has it been pretty positive on that front?
Yeah, it's been excellent, and I appreciate you bringing me around to that topic. I sometimes get caught up in the numbers and the administration part, but that is a very big deal to a lot of people. So we've given just over 1,100 vaccines. We've had 0 major reactions like that have required an EpiPen or a 911. Across the state of Utah, there have been a few, and it's about the percentage we would expect with all vaccines, but just to be full disclosure, that's happened. But the reaction that we have seen the most of, and probably on the order of maybe about 10 individuals, is that they have had a red spot at the injection site. Sometimes will appear up to 7 days after the injection and is kind of sore and itchy for a few days, and anywhere between 1 and 7 days after the injection. That has healed on its own for those individuals. We did have some individuals that have had COVID before get vaccinated. Then the governor said, well, let's wait and hold off for those people. But for those that had already had COVID, they did have about 24 hours of pretty strong symptoms after. That was muscle soreness, fatigue, and headache, kind of mimicking those COVID symptoms. It cleared up for all of them within about 36 hours. So even as we move, individuals that have had COVID, even if they've waited 90 days, they may expect that just a little bit of symptoms afterwards. We do know though that when that opportunity presents itself, it is still worth it for someone that's had COVID to be vaccinated. Now that's a little further down the road for them. But all in all, the vast majority of reports have been just a little bit of a sore arm, and very little issue with the vaccine at all. And newest reports kind of on a national scale really indicate that the vaccine is likely even more than 95% effective, and almost 100% effective in preventing serious disease. So that really bodes well for us looking to the future.
Anyway,
And
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, but that's just from illness, correct? I mean, you could still carry the disease and spread it to others even after being vaccinated, correct?
So there's not a lot of data on that, and part of the reason why, at least for some time, we're going to continue to encourage social distancing and masks use, is because there is still that possibility that people are a carrier. So that there's still some research on to that end, and yes, it's a point well made that is still a concern.
Another question I have, Brady, and it might not be one you'll have the answer to, is I've had people contact me who would like to start making plans for fall events, such as the folk festival and things of that nature that will be happening later on. Where do you think we will be in the fall? Will the worry about contacting COVID decrease quite a bit? Will we?
I'm very optimistic to that end. I would hope that everyone in our district that wants a vaccine has at least their first vaccination done by the end of May. Certainly that seems like it's a long way out. So, and even if you kind of apply the numbers, that's maybe 20 to 25,000 people. I have to say I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic of the trends we're seeing locally and statewide. Frankly, I haven't paid much attention to nationwide trends in a little while, but there's a long way to go. But I anticipate. I don't want to. I guess I don't want to get myself in hot water, but I think we'll be able to pull off those events in the fall.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll get a hold of them tomorrow and tell them that, to go ahead with their plans. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, Brady. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thanks for reminding me that I need to come update you guys once in a while.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
You too. We are now to citizens to be heard. You can dial 669-900-6833, ID 867-1625-2356, password 279317. If you call in, you have to dial *6 to be heard. Mallory, do we have any citizens to be heard?
It looks like we have Mitch Stock on. Mitch, are you here for public comment? Okay, I don't see that Mitch is on mute, so I'm thinking we're okay and that there is no public comment at this time, Mary.
Okay, we will open up for public comment again at close to 6. We are to approval of minutes, approving the minutes of January 5th, 2021. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes of the meeting January 5th, 2001.
Thank you, Jacques Hadler. Do we have a second?
I'll second it, Mary.
Thank you, Tricia Hadeen, second. Discussion. Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes, raise your hand or say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. We are to ratification of bills.
Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I would make a motion to approve the Grand County bills on the day of January 19th, 2021. Total bills in the amount of $549,216.84. Total payroll in the amount of $235,285.29. And total bills and payroll in the amount of $784,502.13.
Thank you, Gabriel. Do I have a second? Thank you, Jacques. During the orientation for commissioners, we learned that it's not necessary to do a roll call vote on improvement of bills. So unless someone objects, I will just call for the vote after discussion. Okay, is there anyone to discuss? Anybody have anything to add? All in favor of approving the bills, please raise your hand or say aye or both. Aye. Anyone opposed? Bills passed unanimously. Commission member disclosures. Does anyone have something they must disclose for this meeting's agenda? Okay. We are to general commissioners' reports and future considerations. Let's start with Gabriel.
Thank you. Last week, as I alluded to before, I attended the first meeting of the year for the Canyonlands Healthcare Special Service District. And for those of you who are new, that's the board that governs the Canyonlands Care Center, which is attached to Moab Regional Hospital and is our 32-bed long-term nursing care facility, which actually on the 28th of this month will have its 10-year anniversary in our community, which is very exciting. It was built because with after some surveying among the community, it was shown to be one of the top sort of needs or desires among the community to have a facility like that for our elderly loved ones to be able to stay in this community through end of life. So that's a proud moment to get through 10 years. So they had a vaccine clinic that they were scheduled for the 30th, but because of some extra doses that they had, and I think it was that first shipment that went to the hospital, and they ended up being able to push it all the way to January. And had all the most of the staff, not all, because of some short notice, they weren't able to get quite everyone amongst the staff, and then 99% of the residents. There was one resident that declined. So that's really exciting. the COVID has been devastating to these types of facilities across the country. It's been one of the main sort of contributors to the mortality. And so the fact that we were able to sort of get that into our care center, I think is really brings great, peace to me. And I think it should for everyone in the community. And on that note, there hasn't been any deaths in the care center, and it's only 3 out of 97 such facilities in the state of Utah without even a positive case of a resident in the facility. So that's wonderful. It's a 5-star facility, and we should be proud to have such a facility in our community. Since we're still in a public health emergency, there's still very strict standards with regards to isolation upon admission of new residents, and they're definitely maintaining COVID beds and the appropriate precautions. So certainly not in the clear yet. That'll have to come down from the state in terms of them, in terms of real sort of security in that sense. But it does feel, I think, for the staff there and for all of us involved, a great relief to get to this point. And that's all I had to report today.
Thank you, Gabriel. Evan?
Not a lot, excuse me, not a lot to report. I met with the EMS Special Service District, and things are going well there. I would say the biggest thing to report is the building permit that was submitted, 5-6 months ago, is still sitting on a desk at the city. Hopefully that gets approved in the next couple days. They had approved some excavation, but the concrete or cement crew is here ready to go and just waiting on that permit. And a little more that's more pertinent for this body, or the MBA, I should say, is if you remember, the building up there spans 2 county properties, and so we just need to get an easement. I guess it doesn't span it. The parking spans over from the other county property to the one that the building's being built on. So it didn't get on the agenda in time for this meeting, but get that going next time. Besides that, things are going good. 86% of the EMS staff has been vaccinated or has received their first round. And I believe that that's everyone who's interested in doing it. Jacques, to your question about why people wouldn't want to, in terms of the EMS staff, some of them live further away. We have staff members that commute in for a relatively few amount of shifts, and they just haven't been coming down during the slow season and didn't feel the need to get it yet.
Thanks, Evan.
Yeah, I believe that's all I got.
Thank you, Evan. Kevin?
I don't have a whole lot of report. I was at a meeting with some BLM staff that some of you are also at, discussing sand flats and things we might do in the future to sort of help protect the resource up there. And yeah, I think that's all I have to report. Thanks.
Thank you. Sarah?
I don't have anything to report right now. I'm just getting caught up on all my boards and making first contacts. So
thank you.
Next time.
Trish?
There we go. So I went to a couple meetings. I also missed a couple meetings. Yes, I'm getting all my ducks in a row, so I apologize if I missed a couple meetings. So I went to Thompson Springs Special Service District Water Board, And that kind of fed into the issue. Basically, they have some individuals, quite a few of RVs and or people living in just cars at residences. And so thus, you know, in theory, they are using water that's not allotted to them. But then that led into the discussion of cleaning up that area. And then we have already discussed having that additional meeting the next day about that. They're looking at more spring development and a little bit caught up with the BLM, and I'm working on following up with that. I went to a library board meeting, and our library is again a star library in the state. There's only 2 in the entire state. They were able to donate put a large donation together for the Navajo Nation, both books and supplies that were surplus. They're continuing curbside service and by appointment services. They've now added quite a few mobile hotspots to the community for circulation. And then we've already discussed meeting with Thompson, out at Thompson, to work on further mitigation of fire issues there. So that's it, Mary.
Thank you very much. Jacques?
Hi. There's a little bit of background noise here, so I apologize if I'm not clear. I attended a few meetings this week. The first was the trail mix meeting where officers were elected, mostly retained. And then the main discussion revolved around the new BLM campground out at Klondike Bluffs and the future elimination of dispersed camping in that area as well. I also went to the motorized trails meeting where again, officers were elected, mostly retained from previously. And there wasn't a whole lot discussed there. One thing that was brought up was a potential lower Gemini trailhead cliff from the Motorized Trails Committee was kind of testing the waters with that and seeing what kind of interest there might be with the lower Gemini trailhead next to the private land trailhead or in a similar area there. And that'll be up for discussion at the next meeting. I went to the Old Spanish Trail Arena meeting where again, officers were elected, first meeting of the year. It was just the necessity of a dog park in the area was discussed. Apparently, the ball fields there are used by lots of people for walking their dogs, and the dog poop problem there, to be perfectly blunt, is an issue for them. So there are potential sites for a place to put up a dog park in the future. That'll also be up for more discussion with the Old Spanish Trail, and also potential funding for the dog park there, but it was deemed fairly necessary. Also, the World Trail was discussed as a exercise trail on the premises for both humans and horses. And I also want to congratulate Angie Book on her appointment as the new director of Old Spanish Trail. She was selected for the director's position, if you guys hadn't heard that. I also attended the BLM meeting with Kevin and Mary, what Kevin said previously about protecting the resources there. And I met with Forrest and Barb from the Museum of Moab in a telephone call. I was introduced to them, and they forwarded a lot of information on the museum for me, which I'm excited about. It looks like a great project. The first meeting of the year for that will be tomorrow. And that's all I have.
Oh, Jacques, you've been busy. Thank you. Thank you. I attended on the 7th Housing Task Force meeting. They are very excited about their Vista volunteer worker coming on, and she will be tasked with outreach and land use codes and looking at deed restrictions. There is very little low-income housing availability. MAPS is closed, Virginia's full. I'm not sure about Cinema Court. There are, which is exciting, there are some vouchers that are open. And it's not just for veterans, it has been in the past. So Section 8, if you know anyone that could use Section 8, get it out to them. There have been 6 houses completed at Wingate and 5 more. These are the self-help houses are on being starting, as well as work at Aurora Crossing. On the 12th, I attended the Travel Council meeting. They had an incredible presentation from a professor at the University of Utah. She's a professor of sustainable tourism, ecotourism, nature-based resources, contracting, advertising department of auto industry about concern. Oh, wait, excuse me. Anyway, it was an incredible presentation, a very good presentation. And I think it's something they will look at, and we are most likely, if we have I want to talk for future considerations, is come up with a time we can have a workshop to go over and do some planning for the year. And we are, I'm working with Travel Council to contact, they're getting me the emails for the advertising departments of auto industries and like the Chevrolet, Ford, GMC, because I don't know if any of you have seen it, but I saw a ad from Chevrolet that were saying, you know, talking about their 4-wheel drive trucks, and they say, you don't even need to stay on the road. You can make your own road. And I about fell off my chair. So I think some of those we need to contact them and tell them that is not a message you should be sending out. And that there's work towards getting some pickleball courts in the community that we'll be working through with the Travel Council will be helping us with that, or the travel meeting. I went to the UTV damage. Homeless coordinating meeting. Trish wasn't able to attend, so I went. The addiction recovery program is having 3 meetings a week, Zoom, and I guess it's being very, very helpful. And the hospital's program to deal with alcoholism and drug abuse, Dr. Priest is a very, you know, we discussed the value of that. And we have a point person to do input on the homeless in the community. And then we talked about the sadness that we lost a homeless person to exposure this year. And I think that is, as a county, tragic. We need to do better figuring out a way to keep our homeless warm in these cold months. And it's a tough one because it's not in my neighborhood, and finding also the resources and the ways to do it. We've been looking at different things from having churches take in homeless, rotating it. We've looked at a lot. I'm hoping that sometime, especially if we change, you know, when the Four Corners moves to their new location, that perhaps we could use the Interact House thing for a homeless shelter during the cold months at least. I do not want anything like this to happen in our community again. I went on the site visit to Creekside. It was very interesting and gave me a lot of information. We had the UMTRA, Uranium Mill Tailing Removal Action Completion planning meeting to develop a plan for closing, you know, when we have all the tailings removed, which is very, very exciting. We are getting an integrated project team to create a timeline and plans for closure, something I didn't expect to see in my lifetime. So this is good news. I went to the Thompson tour, which was very interesting. USU Advisory Board, there are 2 full-time positions available that are paid very well with good benefits, a home and community 4-H youth program professor, and an extension assistant with on horticulture. So if you know anyone that would be and have a college degree that would fit with that, if you want more information, go to USU Advisory, USU's website. In our USU, they did a study to look at the cost. And USU compared to University of Utah and the Utah State Logan campus, the cost to go to USU in Moab will be less. And the only college or university that has a lower is Southern Utah University. And it's not that much, it's $500 difference. So that's pretty good news, and many programs, and looking forward to having the campus within a year starting. Okay. They've already broke ground, and that's what I've done. So thank you. And for future,
you've been very busy yourself, Mary.
I plan on my meetings for the first of the month. I make that point so that in the end of the, we have a fifth week, I can take the fourth and fifth week off. So yes, it's been good. I have future consideration. I really want to consider maybe times that we can do a workshop. So that's my future considerations. Does any other commissioners have a future consideration? No? Okay.
Can I just elaborate on USU for just a second, Mary? It's just something I think the community should know. If you're less than 65 credits, the cost per credit is aligned with landing and price. So it's like rock bottom. And so I'm always just kind of selling that to high school students or anybody in our community that is, just kind of starting out, dipping their feet into it. It's a great deal if you're kind of in the infant stages of post-secondary.
Thank you, Trish. Yes, it's a very good deal, and it's going to be a really nice economic development, diversity. So that's good. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, elected officials. Quinn, do you have a report?
No, we're just plugging away like normal in the clerk's office. I don't really have anything to report.
Thank you. Christina Sloan isn't with us tonight, and I don't see any other elected officials on the participants at this point. So commission administrators report. Chris?
Thanks, Mary. So as Jacques pointed out, Angela Book did get the Old Spanish Trail Arena director position. So congrats to her. She's been out there a long time. Does a great job. And I had a couple meetings with Forestry, Fire, and State Lands. One to do some final negotiations on a potential agreement for the management of the Dalton Wells campground out there. And Andrea Brand and I brought up several concerns, and I think that we'll be able to work those out. So I'll probably have something to bring to the commission for consideration soon. And of course, that's probably going to be, or what we might hope is contingency if the state park idea doesn't work out. But anyway, I think that's looking more promising. And also met Elaine and Tony, Jim Webster, and I discussed with some Park Service staff attempting to improve the boat ramp near the Colorado River Bridge and the area around it. We sometimes refer to it as North Lions Park. And, unfortunately, whenever you do anything on the river, there's a lot of bureaucratic hoops to jump through, all kinds of permits and everything you need to get. But we really would like to do something with that area, and the boat ramp itself is in really terrible shape, but still gets heavy use. So discussed possibilities there. One thing I just wanted to say with regard to event sponsors that have questions, especially relating to COVID, definitely refer them to our new ordinance, which actually takes into account the risk level that COVID may be in at any particular time, because we drafted that ordinance to kind of cover a variety of risk levels, and then there's different mitigations associated with different risk levels. So I just don't want anybody saying, "Oh, go ahead and your event's good to go." We don't know, but hopefully it is. But there is an ordinance that will have to be followed, and so definitely let people know about that. And Elaine's working on sending that out to everybody. And then just along the lines of what Evan brought up with the shared access easement, I believe that's drafted, so we should be good to go in terms of getting that approved and recorded at the next meeting, and keep the EMS facilities project rolling along. That's all I have for now. Mallory, what do you have?
Well, you and Jacques took one of the things I was going to share about Angie Book, but I will say congratulations to her as well. And the only other thing that I can think of is the CIB list is going to be coming up for the deadline to submit. So please be aware that something is coming your way in February to review those. I'll admit that it's a new process for me, and I need to reach out and make sure I'm going through the right process in terms of prioritization, and if that is a step that those agencies and entities do, or the commission does, or collectively. So more to come about that, but you should see the list for approval at some point in February.
Thank you. Thank you. We do not have any department reports. I can't believe it. It's 5:02 and we are to general business and action items, which this is very unusual. So our first item C is adopting ordinance approving Creekside Estates planned unit development and associated master plan for phase 2 track A. Creekside Estates. Mila?
Hey there, can you all hear me? I'm just checking my microphone.
Yes. Yes.
Great. All right, so we did have the public hearing for this in December on the 15th. We then, I know that some of the commissioners weren't here, but I believe everybody got caught up as to the facts of the matter. We decided to delay for one meeting so that we had a chance to review a request for interpretation from some of the neighbors. We did review that and replied, and the commissioners should have all been copied on that reply. There has been a number of comments. Public comments. I'm happy to answer any questions that any commissioners have about any of the comments that have been received. But I will just reiterate the county position, which is that this proposal does not allow for any additional density. And the advantage to it that the planning staff and county attorney see is that this would allow the roads to be put into separate parcels that would be managed by the HOA rather than being in easements that would have to be granted reciprocally to all of the lots involved. And the reason that the county cares about that is that it could protect us from any future liability or complications were that road to eventually be accepted by the county. There are no plans for those roads to be anything but private roads at this point. I also want to mention that the large lot is not further subdividable. I know that's a point of misunderstanding sometimes, and that the lots in phase 2 would need to conform to the same setbacks as the lots in phase 1. And I'm happy to answer any other clarifying questions.
Thank you, Mila. I know when we did the Strawbergs development, we put in a little stronger language, or a way that it made it really clear that the portion of the land that will not be part of this PUD will not be capable of being subdivided. Do we have some similar language in this plat or in this PUD?
We don't have anything specific. However, it's part of the way that a PUD is operates with a master plan. And so the master plan is what guides the development, and you know, anybody that buys that lot would see the plat, which would include those other 3 lots, and they would be precluded from extra density. However, we can absolutely put a note on the final plat that would make that more clear. Right now, however, we are not contemplating a plat at all. We're not contemplating a preliminary plat or a final plat, just the amendment to the original PUD that changes that minimum lot size. And then the adoption of this layout as the master plan for phase 2. So we could absolutely put that on a note on the master plan to that effect.
Now, can the master plan be tweaked with much after it's approved? So I know I've had calls from various citizens that live out there, and they say, we think we have a better idea. Can we talk to people about our better idea? Or if this is approved, the way that the houses are set are permanent, but that's not the case, right?
Right. So the master plan is essentially the guiding document of the development, and there are small changes that are allowed without commission approval. You know, things like if a lot line needed to be moved a foot or 2, or, you know, something very minor that didn't affect anything else about the layout of the utilities or anything like that. Any larger changes such as, you know, density, road layouts, anything like that would need to go back before the commission as a master plan amendment.
Okay, because that's what they wanted to know, was that if there was some possibility, if they could work with Mr. White, to just change the layout some.
Yeah, so that would be fine. And we could always entertain an amendment to the master plan as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Those are my 2 questions. Commissioners, do you have any other questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Evan.
To move on to discussion, I would move to approve the proposed ordinance amending the Creekside Estates planned unit development to create a master plan for phase 2, allowing minimum lot sizes on tract A of 0.37 acres.
Thank you, Evan. Motion by Evan. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Doc, second. Discussion.
Okay. Yeah, I have quite a bit to say about this. And I really hope that those that do not live in what zone rural residential, like myself, will understand where these individuals are coming from. I'm pretty passionate about this. I think you have seen a large amount of opposition from that community, and you've seen, I believe it was 3 letters in support. 2 of them failed to put their last names on the letters. I'm not really sure what that's about. I think I know who they are, but to me, if you can't put your last name on a letter, I don't know how invested you are in supporting that. And then the other individual lives in town. They live on Rose Tree. I appreciate that they had input, but they're not really invested in rural residential. So that being said, I want to state that the Planning and County Commission has produced a PUD overlay ordinance that now is being taken advantage of, and thus going against rural residential zoning. And also the quality of life of those individuals that have chosen to live in Spanish Valley, rural residential parts of this county. A few months ago, the commissioners approved the Strawburb development against the wishes of a large portion of the neighbors that existed there. However, that being said, I live on that street. Strawburb at least accommodates affordable housing, but I will tell you it's had a large impact on the configuration and characteristics of that neighborhood. And that also being said, it has set a dangerous precedent for further development. It is time as commissioners to note the errors in our ways and acknowledge that faulty use of specific ordinances, but more importantly, the wishes of our residents. And I hope you guys will see that you have a large amount of residents opposing this, and there's a reason for that. So let me state, the PUD overlay permits variation for standard lot configuration in order to reduce disturbance of sensitive land, promote land use compatibility, open space, affordable housing, and facilitate creative site planning. This proposed PUD does none of the above, and that's something that I hope you're looking very carefully at. Strawberry produced affordable housing. This PUD offers none of that. And let me elaborate. These are not sensitive lands. There's no topography that forces creative clustering of homes. It's flat land, it can be developed as 1 acre lots. Rural residential is 1 acre lots. This goes against land use compatibility, as the current land use within this area is rural residential. Thus, no lot should be below 1 acre. And the fact is, in that area, the acreage far exceeds that. The proposal of open space that will be maintained within this PUD is not correct. The open space left by the landowner is simply a buffer from his large parcel to the small clustering that he wants to produce. He hasn't set this buffer aside for a community garden or for a park. It's not designated open space. This in no way meets the demands of affordable housing. And let me give you some statistics here. The 0.42 lot that they're proposing has already been set at a market value of 200 grand. Average building costs are approximately $250 per square foot. That being said, 1,000 square foot house would be $450,000. Current mortgage rates, that gives you a mortgage of about $1,800 per month. If housing should equate to about 30% of your income, that individual would have to make about $6,500 a month. It's about $40 an hour. This in no way satisfies the need for affordable housing. That being said, I think we need to become very wary of that verbiage that's being used by developers. And I think it's something to look forward to in the Planning Commission to really start to put the hammer down on what we're deeming as affordable housing, meaning deed restrictions managed as such. The applicant states that smaller lots are more desirable. That's not the case out there. People move to Spanish Valley. I moved to Spanish Valley 18 years ago because I wanted to be in a rural setting. If I want to be in a suburban setting, I would find that area. If I want to be in an urban setting, I would find that area. People have moved out there because they want to be in a rural setting. So the fact is that we're coming in and manipulating rural residential is unacceptable. It's overriding the wishes of our residences. This does increase density. I understand that, yes, in general, you know, he's allowed 6 lots, but what he's doing is taking up most of it and shoving people into smaller configurations. And I will tell you what just happened on Easy Street or Chapman, however you want to define that. It has just increased that density in the fact that those houses are all pushed together. We changed the setbacks on that, and so the houses are pushed right up against the road. You have a massive amount of people shoved into a small space. So it completely changed the configuration of All American Acres. And I just don't want to see it happening in other communities in Spanish Valley and or Castle Valley or Thompson or the like. Mr. White touts the land as agricultural, and yet he doesn't really set that aside or define that. He has a hobby farm, which I appreciate, but if this was true ag land, he's producing a product, whether it be a crop or livestock. And so I really hope that the commission will look hard at this. I think that we do not want to, if we just continue to allow these types of overlays to happen, that truly they are not a part of that definition of a PUD, we're setting a precedent that we're not going to be able to backtrack on. So I would just adamantly hope that you will vote against this. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish. Her statements brought up a couple questions for me, Mila. One is our PUDs, I'm sorry for my ignorance, but PUDs are not meant for affordable housing. It's a different type of land use, and it's been in existence for how long?
I don't know exactly how long we've had the planned unit development tool in the county code. I would have to look that up, but the Creekside Estates PUD has been approved since 1997. So it has been at least in the code from around that time. I believe that was one of the first ones.
As 1 acre lots, though. Let's make sure we understand.
They do not have to meet any of those requirements. Those are not requirements in the code. They are the purpose and intent. So, you know, there's a number of options that you'll see there under the PUD, under the beginning of the PUD code. I think it's 4.4.1. The affordable housing component is just an option for a developer if they want to apply for a density bonus. So they have that option as well. This PUD does not have any affordable housing, so they don't qualify for a density bonus.
I'd like to say some things, Mary.
Certainly, this is what it's all about.
Yeah, I guess that clarifies a bit. The applicant is not getting a density bonus for open space or affordable housing. So the underlying density remains the same. And without this amendment, the applicant still has the vested right to create 6 lots out of his 6 acres and to use those road easements to meet the acreage requirements. So we're still getting 6 new homes in the area. And I really do want to acknowledge all of the landowners who've spoken out about this project. I understand the sense of fear and wanting to that you live. Mr. White already has the right to subdivide, so that's not what we're talking about. The question here is about placement, roads, and leaving some agricultural land open or not the number of lots he's allowed to have. And I believe that this present plan solves many of the issues that would be underlying if road easements were left in individual properties, like some of the neighbors. I understand the worry about this project setting precedent for other changes in the neighborhood. However, Mr. White's proposal is not an outlier. Currently, there's nothing stopping other neighbors with large lots from submitting a similar sort of clustered subdivision request, as has been done in other areas of the county with the rural residential zoning. Our land use code clearly prefers cluster developments that preserve the base density. And I think there's a good argument for that preference because it allows open space to continue to exist in a subdivided area. Without clustering, there would be no large fields left. And to me, that is the rural character, the agricultural component, not necessarily having some neighbors with small lots. I guess I just want to say that the section 4.4.1 of the land use code states that the planned unit development overlay district was designed to provide flexibility to accomplish one or more of the following purposes. And I believe the first one is to promote flexibility of siting of structures so as to preserve or take advantage of the site's unique natural resource or scenic features. And as a gardener in this area, I know how difficult it is to cultivate living soil in our red dirt, especially with some of the water in the valley. And this land has good dirt and good water. And I view that as a resource, even if it's not set in stone that field will be agriculture forevermore. To me, it seems worthy of trying to preserve it with the hope that somebody would continue to provide local food and vegetables. I mean, Larry is one of a handful of people who have grown vegetables for this community over the years. So I don't know, I'm willing to bet on it. I mean, it's well within the land use code for us to permit this. And I don't think that it actually takes away from the rural character. We're talking about the placement of one house up and down East Bench Road, whether it's closer to another house, like there's still going to be 6 houses. So I'd encourage everyone to vote for it. And I encourage the residents who have spoken out about this to maybe look more at the land use code, like Trish is suggesting, and think about that. The clustered development versus individual or equally separated parcels. I think that there's merit to the point that it preserves rural character. Thank you.
You have something to say?
Yes, Kevin, and then Evan after Kevin.
Okay. First, I do want to thank Trish for giving voice to a lot of the concerns around there. And I think if you look back over the past 20 years, that similar decisions that the county has made about development in Spanish Valley, I think very frequently the county council has been guilty of not taking what the neighbors care about into consideration enough, in my opinion. So I think if you look at the last 10 or 20 issues that were roughly similar to this, and most of them I was on the side of the neighbors, and I thought development was being pushed too fast. The most recent example of that is the high density housing overlay, which I think should have been concentrated closer to town and not really encompass Spanish Valley. But in this particular case, I guess I don't see that this is such a big problem. And I won't try to address every single issue that's been brought up, but I will try to talk about the ones that seem most decisive to me, which has some overlap with what Sarah said. I think it is true that we shouldn't really be thinking of the difference between what's on the ground right now and 6 houses. It's just different ways of placing 6 houses. There is a vested right to put 6 houses there. And if you get creative about drawing lot lines and putting deed restrictions, you can do, even with 1 acre lots, you can force a lot of the houses to be built close to that corner if one wanted to. So I do think that what this master plan versus what the property owner could do if we did not agree to change anything is relatively small. I think a big issue in both Strawberry and here is this issue of clustering, and it is the case that our land use code encourages clustering. I think the key passage is in 4.4.1D, and so this is one of the purposes and intents of the Plan Unit Development Ordinance. And item D reads, promote a clustering development plan pattern in the interest of preserving rural character. So over the years, a lot of people in this county have thought that clustering is good for rural character. Now we've just within the past few months in Strawberry and again here have had cases where the large majority of the neighbors thinks it's harmful to rural character. I don't quite see it. I think in Strawberry, I think that was a bit of a mistake. I think the houses are too close together. And if it were up to me, I think they should have been half acre lots, maybe instead of quarter acre lots or something. There was certainly room to do that on that parcel. But in this particular case, I went out to the site this afternoon. I don't see it as so critical. And I think we do, another important principle is, we should try to be consistent as we make these land use decisions. And I think similar PUD proposals have typically been granted by the county. He's not asking for extra lots. He's not asking for a density bonus. He's just asking for flexibility for where he puts the houses. So, thanks.
Evan?
I honestly don't have a lot to add. I would echo both Kevin's and Sarah's sentiments, but because this is such a hot button item, I did want to just kind of voice some of my reasonings to have them in the public record. And, even though he's not asking for any kind of accommodations based on affordable housing, the definition of affordable housing is based on a percentage of income. And so there are folks in this community who, professionals that do make a higher wage and are still spending a large portion of their income on housing. And there's not a lot of that housing stock available for our doctors and some of our other folks. But not to get down on that rabbit hole, we do have this PUD as a tool. It's in our land use code. It's something that has been there for quite some time, and I'm glad it's there for creative site plans. I think phase 1 out there looks great. It's a beautiful part of the county for sure. There was always going to be a phase 2. It was always planned to have 6 houses, regardless of how this vote goes today. He already has the right for 6 houses, and but that we could lose that agriculture land. And I'm unfamiliar with what he's doing with it currently, if it is just a hobby farm or whatever, but I have bought veggies from Big Lair at the farmer's market back in the day. And I had some friends who were renting from him, and I've even spent a little time in the garden there. So I am familiar with what a special place that whole East Bench area is. We don't require the roads to be separate, but that would be good planning on our part. It's our preference if the roads were in their own lot, so that there's not a bunch of separate ownership of those roads. They could all be shared by the whole development. And there's also the intent, the intent is for those roads to remain private. I know Bill Jackson likes roads, but I don't think he's chomping at the bit to get his hands on these. So really, it really comes down to me to preserving that veggie garden and that agriculture land that has been productive, and it is a special place. And to Kevin's point, I think a lot of times these kind of bigger open spots do add more to the rural feel than a bunch of kind of bigger houses on 1 acre lots kind of spread out in more of like a cookie cutter grid pattern. And I know that it's frustrating as a neighbor to see things change. I've had neighbors close to me expand on their houses and do things that I prefer that it wasn't, but I also recognize that that's their property and their right to kind of take some of those. And so with this PUD tool that we have, it comes down to a legislative decision like this where it's put to a vote. And so I definitely respect the process of what's going on. We received a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission. Staff tends to support the project and the request, and I would like to see that farms in the valley, regardless of how big or small, continue to exist. So I am in support of the motion that I made.
Yes, thank you, Evan. Are there any other comments from any other commissioners?
Yeah.
Hi, Jacques.
Hey, I'd like to thank everybody who wrote a letter. There was a lot of correspondence on this, and you guys gave me a great opportunity to brush up or actually delve into the land use code for the first time. So I appreciate that. And doing so, I didn't find anything that was at odds with the Planning Commission's recommendation or the county attorney's recommendation either. And I just wanted to say thank everybody for their input.
Anyone else?
Yep. Chair, Madam Chair. Just real quick, I did perform a site visit. Left me with no concerns about the compatibility of this clustering. In fact, it almost feels as though it fits quite well with existing, on the approach and the existing configuration of houses. Don't think it represents some sort of sore thumb outlier context. And preserving the established cultivated agricultural land does constitute a benefit, and that's what this amendment achieves. So I'm in support.
Thank you, Gabriel. I feel a lot.
May I just make a couple more comments, Mary? And I just want to kind of let it lie after this and just kind of respond to a few things. Let's make it clear that buffer that he set aside, he is not delineated as agricultural land at all. So I don't want to, I think we're getting a little sideways in assuming that. I think it could be great, but he is not deed restricted it as such. It should also be understood, I grew up in the middle of nowhere. I've always grown, I'm from the country, and I currently live on 1 acre, and 1 acre is ample. I don't know if you've seen Rhonda Gottway's property, for example. She lives, I think it's 2 acres in total, but you can produce a lot of food on 1 acre. So don't kind of get sideways on, oh, if we cut it up into 1 acre lots, we're not going to have that agricultural land, because you could have a lot of production in that configuration. And I think we're getting, again, a little sideways and saying we're not doing anything different. That is zoned rural residential, which is 1 acre lots, as was Strawberg. And so you are doing something different. You are changing that configuration, and you're going against, people moved there for a reason and exist there for a reason, because they like that space. Again, they don't want to live on 1/4 acre lots or 3/4 acre lots. And so you are going against the wishes of those residences and those that have, spent their entire lives there or have moved out there 10 years ago for that purpose. So I'm a little disappointed to hear that we're not respecting the wishes of our residents.
Thank you.
The
What-
PUD has already been applied to this property. This isn't a new designation.
I know, but they were 1 acre lots, the original designation.
Right, the PUD is part of our land use code that gives us flexibility to approve variations.
I understand, and I could see that, Evan, if it was defined, if it was needed because of the topography or I think we came up with it. To me, it makes sense in certain circumstances that make sense, right? But it doesn't in this case.
Talking to different planning commissioners and spending time with Mila, Mr. White could do the very, very same thing that he's doing now, place the houses where he wants to, but then he would make long, skinny lots, and they would be owned by separate people, and there would be no, it would take away more of the possibility of maintaining the fields and farm that is being used as farm right now. So this PUD makes it so that no other houses would ever be built out there. It will keep a wide open space. And if he didn't want to use the PUD, he could still put the houses where he has them planned by how he draws the acreage. And then it would be owned by 6 separate people or 4 separate people, and it wouldn't be as cohesive as it is right now. Mila? Is Mila there?
I'm right here.
Okay, I would feel more comfortable, and I'd like maybe Evan to just amend his motion to include the words, stronger wordage that was used in the Strawberg, that the rest of this place will not be subject to building a house. You know, am I making myself clear, or am I?
Did you mean you wanted a note on the master plan that sort of emphasizes that no further subdivision can be allowed unless we, change zoning, change the master plan? Is that?
Yes, that's what I want. I want it real clear. I think that will take away some of the fear, because people I talked to, no matter how I said it, they thought that there was going to, at some point, people were going to be able to build on that vacant area. And I know we did it with the Strawbergs, where we made a note on the master plan that that was not a possibility. And I would I would like that included.
Should I offer an amendment?
I would like that.
Okay, so I move that we amend the main motion to incorporate the requirement that on the master plan, we include a note similar to the one that we did for Strawberg, that emphasize anyone reading this master plan in the future that it is not the intention of this council that the big lots be further subdivided, and then we think they've already used up all their density for this 6 acres. I know that's not the exact language. Is that clear enough, Mila, that you know?
Sure, and I do have the exact language here if you'd like me to put it in the text box, and if you'd like to read it. Otherwise,
okay, if you think it fits, sure.
Actually, it looks like it's on a PDF, so it may be.
Just read it.
Is it basically recording the preliminary plat as a master plan?
Yes, that was the intention. So what's in the packet was the preliminary plat originally, but it has been modified to say master plan, and it will be recorded as a master plan. When this PUD was approved back in 1997, there was no master plan requirement.
So, Mary, does that check the box for you that the original motion included creating a master plan for phase 2?
Or where that in that master plan that that acreage that is left there cannot be. Yes, what we put in the Strawberg, can never be any more houses. And I'm also a little more comfortable with the fact that I know some of the neighbors are okay with what's going on. They just think there's a better placement. And if the neighbors talk to them and there's similar placement, and Mila said that that was a possibility.
Okay. So if we approved a master plan today, though, would we be painting ourselves in a corner by? Okay.
There could be an amended master plan that could come before you for approval.
Okay, so I guess I made a motion to amend, and
do I have a second to the amendment?
Okay.
Do I need that?
Okay, and then I just want to make sure that Chris and Mila think that the amendment was clear enough.
Yeah, it's clear enough. So yeah, let's get a second, and then if there's more discussion, we'll have it.
Okay, I have a motion for an amendment by Kevin Walker. Do I have a second?
Second.
Jacques Adler seconded it. So discussion.
Hopefully this amendment is not controversial, so I have no further discussion.
Well, I think it adds some sense of security that their fear of the whole place becoming small lots is eliminated.
I'm happy to leave that note if anybody would like to hear it.
And just to be clear, that would also include the exterior setbacks remaining at 25 feet, and that the southern setbacks are also as stated.
Yeah, I assume that was already in the master plan, but
it is.
Mila, if you wanted to read what you were, I didn't mean to cut you off, sorry.
Oh no, that's okay. Just so that everybody is talking about the same thing. I know some of the commission members weren't on the commission when we approved the Strawberg. So the note that's on that plat reads as follows. The Grand County Land Use Code and Zoning Map in effect at the time the Strawberg PUD was approved by the prior Grand County Council established that the underlying zone was rural residential and the base density was 1 lot per acre. The average density of the strawberb is 1 lot per acre, and no lot in the strawberb may be subdivided unless the underlying zoning of the vicinity is changed to allow higher density and any other requirements established by the land use authority are met.
Thank you.
Great.
Hey, wait, Mila, this is Quinn. Will you email that to me, please?
Sure.
Oh, wait, so just to be clear, Quinn, though, that's for strawberb, and so it still needs to be officially amended to be for Creekside, just
Yes.
so we're all
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah, so the effect of this amendment is to direct Mila to adapt the words she just read to this, assuming we end up passing it. And that will be on the master plan, right?
Right.
Can we vote on the amendment?
Yes. This is a vote on the amendment. How many approve the amendment? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Passes unanimously.
Mary, Tricia.
Trish was opposed.
Oh, I didn't see her. I didn't hear her. So when I said anyone opposed, okay. So Tricia Dean opposed. Her picture's not coming up right now.
So Mary, can I just make a suggestion? When we're on Zoom, it's probably good practice to always call for those against, just so that if they are, that they can verbalize it, so you don't have to rely on.
I thought I asked for all those against. I didn't hear. Okay, I'll call it again. All those in favor, say aye. Now raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed?
Sorry, Trish Dean opposed.
Okay. Motion passes 6-1. Tricia Dean in opposition.
Could I say something back about the main motion?
Yes.
I just wanted to respond briefly to a couple of points Trish raised in her second comments. I agree that this isn't really an affordable housing issue, and my support of this is not based on the notion that this is going to help us with affordable housing. And I think similarly, we all know that, the current property owner could sell this tomorrow. And so whenever we look at any PUDs or zoning changes, things like that, we should really focus on, what's allowed, not what the intentions of the current owner are. So while I think doing this might increase the chances of some agriculture there's certainly no guarantee. And my support of this is not dependent on, thinking that there's some certainty that this is going to help agriculture in the future. So I just wanted to concede that, those points that Trish raised. I think they're good points, but on balance, I'm still in support of it.
Okay, the amendment has passed. We are to voting on the motion with the amendment. Do we need to have it read, since we've had such a long discussion?
I think we know what we're voting on.
Okay. And so I will call for all in favor of the amended motion. Please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposition?
I'm opposed. Trish Dean.
Motion passes 6-1 with 1 in opposition. Thank you. We are to item D, approving executive order adopting COVID-19 sick leave during the 2021 pandemic period. Renee Baker.
Thanks, Mary. So the original executive order was passed back in April 1st of 2020. And we only wrote it through the end of the year, hoping that this pandemic would be over by then. And it has been extended. The pandemic has been extended. So that leaves us with the issue of COVID paid sick leave available to all employees. While it is not a federally required issue anymore, the federal requirement also expired on the end of December. They've extended the tax credits, which as a public employer, we do not get to take advantage of, but they still extended it for it to be reimbursable under our CARES Act funding. We did receive some CARES Act funding in 2020. Haven't heard of any coming in 2021, but this would add to that kind of padding if any expense should be deemed not allowable in the future. So my recommendation here would be to continue the use of COVID paid sick leave and the expanded family medical leave as defined in the executive order, so that our employees don't have to choose between coming into work and getting everybody sick and a paycheck, or being able to stay home. So.
Thank you, Renee.
Absolutely.
Yes, Sarah?
I move to approve the executive order dated January 19th, 2021, adopting COVID-19 sick leave during the 2021 pandemic period.
Thank you, Sarah. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Kevin Walker. Discussion.
I can say from experience that what might seem to just be a small sniffle and a seasonal illness can turn out to be something much worse. And I would prefer to have employees erring on the side of caution, and I don't want people choosing between coming to work or staying home based on a paycheck. So I encourage all our employees to stay safe and treat any small illness as something potentially worse.
Perfect. Thanks, Evan.
Any further discussion?
Mary, I just wanted to add and point out that this executive order would expire when we are no longer in a locally declared emergency. So when that emergency order is over, so is this.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? I'll call a vote. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We are to approving rules and regulations and minimum standards for the Canyonlands Regional Airport. Andy.
Good afternoon or evening, County Commissioners, County staff, and members of the public. Andy Solzweig, Airport Director. Proposing to you tonight for adoption by ordinance is the Airport Rules and Regulations and Minimum Standards. This has been a process that has been in the works by the previous director as well as myself. We've revised it and reviewed it extensively, and I think we're finally at the point of adoption. What these documents do is basically set the guidelines and rules for any user of the airport. It's just general rules, and as well, so the minimum standards is more of what a new business organization would need at a minimum to operate at the airport. Rules and regulations is for any user, just kind of general guidelines. So what we also have is a tenant or a lease agreement update, which is a part of the minimum standards. I know I'm bouncing around because there's two documents that are going to get adopted, hopefully. But I'll leave it at that and help answer any questions.
Questions?
Was there any part of this that involved a lot of head scratching or got contentious?
Absolutely. We, through the changes that have been made, keep in mind we use probably 4 to 5 different rules and regulations or minimum standards agreements. And what I tried to do is take the best of each and then bring them to the airport board for review and questioning. And there was quite a few things that we either had clarified or changed, modified to try and define, especially in the lease agreement update, where we've tried to find that delicate balance between the Grand County as owner and the tenant uses. So, or tenants' rights, I guess I could say. But I think we found that happy medium. And keep in mind for everyone, this is a living document. It can be changed at any time in the future. I think we're ready for adoption. And if we find something down the road that we need to modify or change, we can do that.
You guys scaring birds off with guns out there?
We do already. We have
Is
a
that-
permit for that. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't see that called out under the hunting.
Yeah, I mean, other tenants cannot. We can because we get a depredation permit and other reasons, but it's mainly for the safety of flight. So if we need to remove animals for that reason, we can do that. That's our job though, not the tenant's job.
Gotcha. Is there anything that you need feedback from us on?
Just answer any questions.
So I have a question. This is more like, doesn't affect what we're going to approve this evening, but I'm just curious what these conditions that you put on granting a lease, what kinds of things are kosher within those conditions? For example, suppose we're getting a lot of helicopter tours that fly over Spanish Valley, and we don't like that. Can we say as a condition for renting the airport that you keep your tours away from the populated areas?
We, as airport owners, we can't put any restrictions. I mean, aside from what they do on airport property, let's keep in mind that the airspace outside of the airport is federal aviation owned. We have no control over what helicopters, aircraft do as long as they're meeting the regulations. They're perfectly legal to do those things. So as a lease or a tenant, it's not in our, I guess, purview to put any restrictions like that because we legally can't.
Well, I guess I was curious, if I was considering whether or not to give someone permission to land a helicopter in my yard or something like that, I might say, well, I'll sign this lease, but only if you first, promise me you're not going to fly over my neighbor's yard or something like that. So I just don't see how my doing that would be preempted by these FAA rules.
Right. Probably be more a legal question than what I could answer, but I don't think we could put a restriction like that, like something like that on any tenant. And it needs to be, keep in mind, any agreements that we have needs to be fair to anybody else doing the similar kind of business or whatever operation that they have. So whatever we offer as far as language in the lease agreement needs to be consistent with all the other tenants.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Any further questions?
Sure, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Just one little thing, proofreading as much as anything, but in the rules and regulations portion, there's multiple references to the county council rather than the commission. So I'm sure that can be easily corrected before this is sort of, printed out several times over.
I thought I caught all those. So yeah, we can make that correction, no problem.
Thanks. It's a good read though. Thank you.
You actually read it? That's impressive. It's lengthy.
It's my job.
I have one thing I'm curious about. Under rules and regulations, flammable, combustible, fluid spills, it says that all spill accidents, including costs for the cleanup, are the responsibility of the company and or the individual causing the spill. And well, my aunt is a fueler out there at the airport. And I don't know, something about that is concerning to me, that the individual might be responsible when the company might be at play. I don't know. Is that a normal provision? I'm not.
It's a fair question. If an individual is working for a company, the company would be liable. The situation like that would be more of a self-serve. For example, let's say we have a transient pilot that comes in doing fueling, they spill it all over the place, and there's a major cleanup involved, that individual would be. So it's probably one or the other, not both. As you know, if somebody's working for the fixed-based operator doing fueling, then that's their job. And so then it'd be up to the company to clean it up.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Anyone else? Did we have a motion? I believe we have.
No, we have not had a motion.
Okay. I can't remember which one we motioned. Yes, Evan?
I move to adopt the proposed ordinance approving the rules and regulations and minimum standards for the Canyonlands Regional Airport.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Evan Clapper, seconded by Jacques Hadler. Any more discussion? Call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
It is, well, we'll probably have up after this next agenda item. I'll see if there's any citizens to be heard. So we are to item number F, approving additions to the 2020 property tax abatements and cancellations. Chris Kaufman, County Treasurer.
Thank you, Mary. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'll make this quick. We approved already through a meeting with the commission back in October, the majority of the abatements and tax relief for the year. But we do always have a few stragglers that come in the last part of the year. And so I'm just presenting those to you for approval, which will capture all of the 2020 property tax abatements and cancellations. And I'm open to any questions if anyone has them.
I have one. I was struggling to understand that. I mean, I'm new to all this, but I was struggling to understand one of the forms submitted where it says the 2020 tax cancellation summary, real property cancellations, and then it lists current penalties, and a bunch of them are for $10, and they say mortgage company did not pay. Can you is that something that we're canceling? Like, or can you explain that? Is that normal?
Sure. So a lot of folks, probably about 25% of parcels in the county are paid by the mortgage company. So these are folks who are paying into an escrow account with their mortgage every month, which includes property taxes, usually insurance as well. And then the mortgage company itself pays the tax. And so we receive a list in September from the mortgage companies of all the parcels they plan to pay. And so we send out two different tax bills every year. One of them is to folks who should pay their taxes, and the other bill is for folks who their mortgage company intends to pay. And so to avoid having people forget that they're paying into escrow and paying their tax, and then the mortgage company tries to pay, and then we've got two payments and it's a hassle. What we do is we send out that bill that tells those folks, don't pay this bill, your mortgage company is planning to pay for you. However, every year there's a handful of instances where the mortgage company doesn't pay. Sometimes it's because they refinanced towards the end of the year, or the property was sold to a different person. There's various reasons, but we're holding the taxpayer harmless from the penalty that they would incur for not paying on time, when it's really the mortgage company's fault for not paying. And so we give them an additional 2 months to pay without penalty. And so we've gone into the system and canceled those penalties. And so this is requesting permission to do that, because the treasurer's office doesn't have the authority to remove penalty, but the commission does.
Thank you. That's very clear.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
I make a
Yeah.
motion.
Yes, Kevin?
I move to approve the additional 2020 property tax abatements and cancellations as presented.
Motion by Kevin. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Sarah. Discussion? Call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. It is exactly
Thank
6
you.
o'clock. So we will now have our second citizens to be heard. Do we have any citizens to be heard? Mallory?
Let's see, we have Mark Horowitz. Are you on for public comment?
Yes, I am. My name is Mark Horowitz. This evening I heard, thank you for all you're doing. You go, Trish Hedin. Thank you very much for your comments tonight. I heard Sand Flats Recreation Area mentioned a couple of times in passing tonight that there was discussion going on about how to deal with impacts. And I just want to express myself here. You know, when I came to Grand County 35 years ago, my foot first touched ground up there. It's a place I love. It's so beautiful. It's the only place we can go to town where there aren't vehicles. That is, if you pass through the Mayhem area and do the pedestrian Juniper Trail. I'm up there 3-4 times a week. But just recently, my wife and I took one of the Jeep roads. And let me tell you, my impression is that the Sand Flats Recreation is overwhelmed. The area is overwhelmed. It's no longer serving its purpose of encouraging responsible recreation. I don't know how many of you might have walked any of those trails, but the roads are very often 50 feet wide. The turns are banked 8 feet up in the air. People are clearly not driving 15 miles an hour out there. By the way, they're not going to in town either. The toll gate effectively makes Sand Flats Road a toll road for residents. Now, we're told that if we stay on the road and don't step off the roadway easement, that we're welcome to drive the road. But I'll tell you, when there are 50 or 100 razors, am I using the right term? Side by side, 4x4, whatever they're called. I call them razors. When there's 50 or 100 of them stuck at the gate, we're going to be stuck there too. I'm just saying, maybe the problem is, I know the problem for the razors here in town, and I know everybody's struggling with how to deal with that, but the same is true at Sand Flats Recreation Area. I spell that now with a W, recreation. In every place, if you walk those roads, in every single place, they'll split around a tree. That poor tree is dead or dying. The roads are 50 feet wide. There's roads and tracks going everywhere. Something should be done, and I hope you're on it. I trust you are. I would say, like Arches National Park, no more than so many people at a time, maybe 100. Each and every one of those razors should have a big old number on the side, and every now and again there should be a marshal out on the road. And if a guy is taking a banked turn at 30 miles an hour and he's pitched at a 45-degree angle, you get that number and he's never coming back. I don't know what else to say. Nobody's out there for the nature. The nature is being destroyed. It's not Sand Flats Recreation's fault.
Mark, could you draw this to a close? I've allowed you to go 4 minutes.
That's been 4 minutes. Okay, well, good luck to us all. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Okay. I see that Michael of Namaste Rock would like to speak for 3 minutes.
Yeah, this is Michael of Namaste Rock. Concerning the small area plan that went last week, I was disappointed to see that after citizens to be heard were taken off and comments were closed, that Grand County went ahead and made an exception for government buildings. Anyway, there are restrictions for buildings that the water should be used, that dark skies should be protected, that solar panels and native vegetation requirements. Anyway, these are all good things, and Namaste Rock supports these. However, the government should be required to abide by these rules also. And the rules should not be applied to just us, but these rules should be applied to everyone countywide. I mean, they're good rules, and we shouldn't be at a competitive disadvantage because we have to follow these rules and no one else does. Anyway, I don't appreciate the discrimination. I would like these rules applied to everyone countywide. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else for citizens to be heard?
Can you hear me, Mary?
Yes, I can, Sarah.
Shall I go ahead?
Yes, and congratulations on your award.
Oh, thank you very much. I missed when you talked about Margaret Hopkin, but I wanted to say, like many people in the community, I was completely shocked that she's really gone, and it's hard to believe she's really gone. Her gentle and powerful energy feels like it's still in the community, and I was extremely deeply honored when I read her obituary to see that she asked people to make donations to Moab Solutions in lieu of flowers. And I've received many, many donations full of love from Margaret. Margaret told me something once years ago, a positive observation that changed every way I did my work. She's an amazing human being, and I'm sure you already decided, but I wanted to just voice my support for naming the school after her. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Sarah. Any other citizens to be heard?
We have somebody on with the last 4 digits ending in 6876. If you are on for public comment, please press *6 to unmute.
This is Larry Everson, just listening in. I have no comment. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Hi, Larry. Anyone else?
That's it, Mary.
Thank you. We are to item G, appointing a commission representative to the Special Events Committee, Elaine Geisler.
Yes, good evening, commissioners. This is to approve the 2021 assignment of a county commissioner representative to the Grand County Special Events Committee. And the special events chapters had been revised by our county attorney, and the Special Events Committee will formally have a county commissioner assigned. And what I would like to do is move to approve that the 2021 commission assign this commissioner to the committee tonight.
Okay. Any questions for Elaine? Do I have, let's probably before we do the motion, we have to figure out who wishes to be on the economic diversity. Is there anyone who
Well, it's actually the Special Events Committee, Mary.
I mean, special events.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the wrong one. On the special events. Is anybody interested in being on the Special Events Committee?
Elaine, how often does the committee meet?
It only meets quarterly. And then the other requirement is that when applications are received, then we forward them out to the Special Events Committee for review, which one of the commissioners would be receiving that paperwork to review in case there are any questions or anything comes up that might need to be addressed. So it's a quarterly meeting. And then it would be review of special events applications when they're being processed.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Kevin?
It does, yes.
Is there anyone that would be interested on being on the Special Events Committee committee? Is there a commissioner willing to do that?
I'd be willing.
Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you. Would you make a motion with your name in it?
Sure. I move to appoint Commissioner Wojtek, myself, to the special events, to be the commission representative on the special events committee.
Thank you. Motion by Gabriel. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
By Trish. Any further discussion? Thank you. Thank you, Gabriel.
So Gabriel, are you okay with that? Because if you're not, I'm willing to do it, but I'm happy.
No, it sounds, I'm interested and enthused to be involved, for sure.
Yes.
You're the guy then.
Sorry, I should get a smile on my face. Appointing yourself is kind of a weird feeling.
It's not that horrible, trust me. We'll make it painless.
Thank you. It's an important committee. It's a real
Yes,
important
it
committee.
is.
So, any further discussion? We have a motion on the floor. I'll call for a vote. All in favor of appointing Gabriel? Say aye, raise your hands or vote.
Aye.
Any opposed? Once again, thank you, and thank you, Kevin, for being willing to. We are now on H, approving amendments to 2021 assignments of the Council Commission representative liaisons to the districts and county board, commission and committees and other agencies. Okay, I believe, if I remember right, we were going to do a switch. Commissioner, Commissioner Hadler. Okay. Jacques, you're going to take Trish's position on the rec board, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, I wouldn't call it a switch, just a just a replacement.
He just took over for me. He took pity on me.
Thank you, Jacques.
And I'm happy to do that, Trish.
Okay, could I have a motion?
I will, following Gabe's lead in appointing himself, I move to approve the amendment to the 2021 commission assignments to replace Commissioner Hedin with Commissioner Hadler, myself, as the representative for the Recreation Board.
Motion by Jacques. Do we have a second?
I'll second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Seconded by Tricia Dean. Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes unanimously. We are to adopting resolution for Economic Diversity Advisory Council bylaws to clarify makeup and member qualification. Chris Baird.
All right, so I think it was one of the last meetings, if not the last meeting probably of last year, we increased the makeup of this board to 5 members. The motion wasn't entirely clear what the additional 2 members, what their roles were or their qualifications. We didn't, so right now I think it's 1 commissioner and then 2 citizens with expertise in diversified business. And so the 2 additional ones weren't clearly defined in that motion. And so I think what we're looking for is some motion for how those 2 additional members or what their qualifications would be, and I think there's, you could do 2 more citizens, or you could do a city representative or a Chamber of Commerce representative. There's a variety of options, but we just need some clarification so that when we put together the appointment and solicit members, that we know who to go to and how to put it together.
I like the idea of a representative from the city. I think that would be really good. And then I think a 3rd member from the community, that has knowledge in diversified economies, like the other two. So we'd have 3 citizens with those qualifications plus a city rec would be what I'd like to see.
So in particular, that's different from what's in the packet, which would have 2 members from public organizations and 2 citizens with the relevant private sector experience.
Yeah, so Mallory drafted up just sort of a sample so that we could see what the amendments would look like. But obviously we'll replace what's in there with whatever you decide on. So if you wanted it to be, public sector, that the way it's written would work. But if with Mary's suggestion, that would just be 1 public sector and a third private sector.
Another good one would be someone from Utah State.
Yeah.
Especially someone in the economic board. That might even be better than another citizens. 2 citizens, Utah State, city and county.
And that's what Mallory and I were thinking. I think when we drafted that, that it would likely be like USU, for instance, used to have, and maybe they still do, a small business development resource specialist. And if I don't know if that position's filled, but if it ever comes back or it exists and I'm not aware of it, that would be a good one to have on this committee also.
So it's really up to us to decide who we want on the committee.
Yeah, and so I think that you could just make a motion approving having staff draft the resolution and bylaws according to whatever you decide. We didn't know, and so we couldn't pre-draft it unless you want to just go to public sector, and then this will work, and then you can decide which ones when you appoint them.
I like what you just suggested, Chris. I mean, I think it gives us some flexibility, but it does allow us to have both a city and a USU representative on there.
Okay.
Does Elaine have any input on this matter?
I would also recommend that we have someone from the city. I think we have to engage them in this agenda, this process. And I definitely think the USU, because they do have someone that works with small business, and I know that because USU's engaged in blanding and in price. So I think we definitely, having them part of it will help us quite a bit. So I'm in favor of those, would be those 2 entities.
Does somebody want to turn that into a motion?
Sure. I move to adopt the proposed resolution amending the Grand County Economic Diversification Advisory Council bylaws. And just to clarify, I guess I'm proposing it exactly as it's written in the packet, rather than a variation on that.
Okay, a motion by Kevin to do the advisory board as it is written in the Economic Diversification Advisory Council, as written in the packet. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Is that Jacques?
Yes, Jacques.
Okay, motion by Kevin Walker, seconded by Jacques Hadler. Discussion. All in
Yeah, I
favor?
think that's open-ended enough that it can kind of catch all. So.
Yeah, I agree with Evan. I mean, I think the way it's written now does give us some flexibility. If for some reason we can't find a suitable person from USU, for example, there's other ways to fill that slot. So.
Yeah, and but I think that we can't, when it comes to inviting or tapping people, those would be the city and USU would be good places to start.
Could we maybe write in there a preference for the public sector?
What do you mean for which
I'm
position?
trying to.
So the way that it's kind of set up is that there's slots that in these 5 memberships for different qualifications. So the way that the motion that Kevin presented would work is that we would have 1 county commissioner on this board, 2 private sector citizens, which you would select, and then 2 public sector positions. Does that
Oh, okay. Not including the 4 organizations.
Oh yeah, it's not. It's well, I guess we were intending by public sector we meant governmental, not
How does sorry, how does the Chamber of Commerce fit into that? Or is that private or
the chamber would have to, make it into one of the 2 private.
that's what okay. Good. I just want to make sure.
That was unclear in the packet, but I agree. I mean, I let the minutes show that I think the chamber is more a private organization, not a public one.
Oh, yeah. Well, they definitely are. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor. Motion by Kevin, seconded by Jacques. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, we are to J, adopting resolution supporting the creation of Utah Raptor State Park. Last year, we sent a letter of support. I was talking to Steve Eliason, and he said that a resolution would be better because it would make it into the permanent records. And last year, the proposal to create Utah Raptor State Park passed through the House, but did not make it through the Senate. It has a better chance this year because there's extra monies for outdoor recreation. Area where it's getting destroyed, and and this would help the county because we wouldn't have to take on the responsibility. And I feel it. So, any questions? Pretty simple.
Madam Chair,
Mhm.
I would move to adopt the resolution supporting the creation of Utah Raptor State Park.
Okay. Motion by Evan. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Sarah. Discussion.
I am spacing the name of his plan, but our new Governor Cox has got a rural plan that specifically calls out support for state parks. And so,
Yeah, I'm so glad it got in there. Yes.
yeah, I would like to forward this to his office as well. And
Probably the best.
put it on their radar.
I'll send it. We should probably send it to Mike Mauer. That would probably be the best way to get it to him. Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor of the resolution? Raise your hand.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes unanimously. We are approving Utah Association of Counties 2021 membership renewal. Chris Fair.
Okay, so as we discussed, or some of us anyway, during the budget sessions and the approval of the budget, we established a budget for our UAC renewal, but it was indicated to me that didn't mean that it was approved, and so this is the point in time where the commissioners can determine whether or not they want to renew their Utah Association of Counties membership for 2021. It is budgeted.
It is budget.
Are we already late on the payments, or do we have?
We're probably late, but
I think we've actually gotten the bill, but we haven't paid it yet.
And we never really got much traction with the a la carte idea, huh?
Well, they rolled the attorney fees into the regular dues. So there's no separate line item for the public lands attorney fees anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was more hoping for some of the things with like support for some of the other offices, some of the other elected officials who find a lot of value in other UAC services besides the legislative efforts.
So Chris, jump in if I'm wrong, but so my recollection of the previous conversation is that UAC did seem to be at least paying, a lot of lip service to the idea that, they wanted to work with us and make us happy and us to stay in. And they did seem to offer a number of very concrete reforms they were thinking of doing. And so I guess one thing we could do is, pay the dues again this year, but just make it clear to them that if we're not getting the sort of results we want, the kind of help that we want in lobbying the state and maybe actual results, then we would consider withdrawing. And I suppose our other option is to try to have the discussion before we pay this year's dues, but
we sort of already have, and I think that our meeting with them last time, that was sort of a point that we revolved around in our discussion with them. I think that they seem to be quite aware that we're contemplating not renewing, and that's why we're seeing their attempts to serve us better. And so but yeah, I think that if you guys wanted, I'd be a little more comfortable if one of the commissioners drafted a letter stating something like that. But I can do it as well. The other elected officials that don't participate in these meetings do tend to get a lot of help from UAC, and it's a pretty good resource for them when they need help and to confer. Of course, a lot of these other elected officials don't have nearly as political a role to play or contentious, and so the technical assistance is very valuable to them. It is a little, I'm mildly perturbed, I guess I would say, by the public lands element, but they did say that anybody who shows up to the meetings is instantly a voting member. So I guess that's, their way of saying, if it's not what you want it to be, then show up and make it into something you want it to be. The only thing they really pointed out that they said was helpful was that they helped out with the state PILT, federal PILT problem. I mean, I have to say that I instantly knew exactly what was wrong and communicated that to the state treasurer. So, it wasn't anything that UAC did that helped us out there. I knew right away what was wrong as soon as I heard it.
So I move that we take our UAC dues and turn it into a bonus for Chris.
Oh, that's a good one. Is there a second?
So let me just for the sake of discussion, I just want to throw out the idea that yes, we go ahead and renew the dues, and then sometime very soon we write them a letter so that it's very clear to them, what the factors that will affect whether we renew again next year. And just so that there's no communication, they know exactly what we want. Because I feel like we do maybe have, if they are sincerely wanting to help us out, they can definitely use some help.
Yeah, and I do think that there's a lot of creative ways that they can help draft legislation, that helps counties out in ways that don't over or impinge upon one another's desires. And that's some of my frustration with, especially with like TRT legislation. It doesn't have to be drafted to be all or nothing, it can be catered to the counties that need it if you're creative. And so I don't know that there's a big excuse for some of their legislation not being applicable to us, but we'll see how things progress.
I like the idea of staying in this year and seeing how it works, and let them know that if we're not satisfied as a commission, that we would like to do an a la carte where we could pay for our other elected officials that are getting a lot out of it. And we could.
I think as a new commissioner, I haven't had a chance to really see what they can do for us yet, or me. And then in light of having already budgeted it and essentially paid for it, at least give them a chance this year. and I'd sign on to a letter telling them they should get their act together as far as Grand County goes as well.
Want to make a motion?
Sure. Can't find it. I'll move.
It's not in there. Yeah.
Okay. I will move to continue to stay in to keep Grand County in the UAC this year. Does that work?
Approve payment of dues for 21.
Yeah. Approve payment of dues to UAC for.
I move to approve payment of dues to UAC for 2021.
Thank you, Jacques. Seconded by Kevin. Discussion?
Commissioner Clapper, how do you feel about giving it one more year?
I think that for me, I'm struggling with the value that, or the reason to support it would be the value that's offered to some of these kind of political positions that Chris was mentioning. I know that not only does Chris Kaufman get a lot of support from them, he's also serves on a board there and is well respected across the state for the work that he does there. And I believe Quinn's office and the assessors and many others get support from them. I am a little frustrated that it's kind of like, I feel like we've been having the same kind of conversation for like 5 years. And to their credit, I don't know if we've kind of submitted a formal letter or whatever. And so I'm not going to scream and holler to try to persuade not paying the bill, but I might not vote for it just so that it doesn't have a unanimous approval, and they might kind of see if they look at minutes that there's some wavering and on the fence. Let the record show. I'm tired of it.
I also want to say, well, I recognize that withdrawing from UAC would have some negative effects for some of our other elected officials. I'm willing to do it. I think that's, if we just say that we would never withdraw because of that, then we don't have any leverage. So I think, we have to be willing to make that threat, and we have to be willing to carry through on it as well. So, so just for the record, and of course, if they offer us an a la carte thing, that might be a good solution too. But I'm hopeful that they will actually give us some value this year, and we'll be happy with it. So.
And I can appreciate that, and I think that the commission has made some moves to kind of cover our bases if that was the case. Hiring lobbyists on our behalf to represent us in the legislation is kind of like a first step in that direction. But we haven't had similar conversations with other elected officials. I think before, if they had all seen this in the budget and was expecting to be a UAC member this year, that if we suddenly were like, oh, surprise, no UAC for Grand County this year, I'm unfamiliar with how that would affect some of their other offices, and I want to give all our public servants the best tools that they can to perform their job in a good way. So maybe I'm backpedaling on my firm stance. You guys are all supposed to be the easy pushover, so I could be the guy taking a stand. No, I don't want to derail UAC for this year, or our UAC relationship this year, for the sake of our other elected officials. I think if that is the move that we're going to do, That needs to be a big conversation that happens within our organization. If at the minimum to give people the heads up and say, hey, if we were to do this, what would you need? You know, how can we fill that gap? You know, if we're hiring lobbyists, what do we need to hire for them to kind of help with some of this, you know, support that they get out of interpreting laws and new regs as they come down from upstate.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Say aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1 with Evan Clapper in opposition. Okay, we are to approving correspondence with Grand County Commission to United States Senator Mitt Romney. Gabriel Wojtek.
All right, thank you, Mary. Just in light of the events on January 6th at the United States Capitol, and you know, just seeing some reports, Senator Romney getting some heckling and otherwise blowback for refusing to entertain and support claims of election fraud that had no evidence, that wasn't easily debunked. You know, drafted up this letter and just wanted to say, just make a statement that, you know, from the federal level to the county level, we have established norms and systems that we rightly trust and uphold. And the abuse of those norms through the crafting of fiction is pretty troubling. And I wanted to recognize Senator Romney for his unwavering trust in our democracy. And certainly it's messy and certainly not without conflict and need for improvement always and nurturing, but it's worth standing up for, as Senator Romney has. And I thought it would be nice for him to receive correspondence from a body like the Commission in support of his taking his stand.
Thank you. Thank you. You want to turn that into a motion?
Sure. I would move to approve the correspondence from the Grand County Commission to United States Senator Mitt Romney.
Motion by Gabriel, seconded by Evan, and I echo all of your sentiments, and it's good to let people know when you're pleased with their job.
I'd like to say something to that point. I had my first meeting as an elected officer or as an elected person on January 5th, and I came home from work early on January 6th and saw the events that were unfolding in Washington, D.C. I'm a native Washingtonian. I've been to the Capitol many times, including on field trips, and from elementary school up through high school. I know the building and was absolutely horrified to see what was going on there. And I was glued to NPR for the whole day. I listened to all the speeches that were made in the Senate, and immediately there's something that Mitt Romney said during his speech popped out at me right away. And that was the best way that we can show respect for the voters who are upset is by telling them the truth. That is the duty and the burden of leadership. And that hit me pretty hard. And I thought that was probably the best speech that I heard that whole day of many, and the one that affected me the most. And I very much respect our senator. And I'd also like to thank Senators Lee and Representative Curtis for not signing on to the for supporting the election results too.
Yeah. And I want to just say one more thing about Romney. I've been going back east to a lobby for the UMTRA project, I think now for 5 years, maybe more. And since Romney once he was elected, was the first senator from our state who made an effort to make sure when we set up our meeting with his staff that he was present to welcome us and tell us that he was happy to see us and he would listen to why we were there. That is not, that's not traditional. John Curtis is the only other one who consistently meets with us when we go to Washington, D.C. And that means a lot, because you go to a lot of senators' offices, a lot of congressmen's offices, and they don't make that effort, even the people from your state. So, okay, any other discussions?
Yep.
Yes.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Kevin?
Okay. I was just going to say, we might increase our impact if we also wrote letters individually to Romney, thanking him in our own words. It probably doesn't take that much time to compose such a letter.
I put that article in the paper that he would be in Profiles of Courage if that book was written today. Evan?
Yeah, I would just like to commend Commissioner Wojtek and others in taking this effort. As you can tell by the last agenda item, I like to complain a lot, and I think that I was looking at ways to use this position, this platform, to criticize some of the others who I didn't feel were upholding their oath to the Constitution. And so, but I didn't want to feed into the divisiveness and separation kind of politics. And so I kind of like let it roll off my back. And rather than doing nothing, I think that this is a nice angle to prop up our fellow folks that we're working with and to really support him. I can imagine this was not easy to do, and I know that he does get a lot of heckling, and as someone who has faced heckling in the grocery store over silly things, I can only imagine what he's had to put up with. I wouldn't be surprised if people are showing up at his front door and stuff. So just thanks to Gabe for, instead of shaking fingers at other politicians, really patting the good ones on the back. So thanks for steering this body's efforts in a good direction as well.
Thank you. And thank you, Gabe. Any further discussion? I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the motion? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We are to approving letter to Grand County School District in support of the new middle school being named after the former superintendent, Margaret Hopkin. I worked with Margaret Hopkin when she was a teacher. She was a master teacher. I worked with her. She was my principal. And I would say she was the best principal I ever worked under. No one compared to her ability to bring everybody up, to give them the tools to be the best they could. And then I had the privilege of working with her as a superintendent. And she navigated the district through very, very rough waters. She was an amazing woman. I'm getting emotional, so I'm going to stop there.
I know. Mary and I talked about doing this together, and I thought that too. Like, if I can get through this without crying, I will feel pretty good. I came on. I taught third grade with Mary at Red Rock, and Margaret was the superintendent at that time. And I cannot convey to you the impact and the love that she has had on this community and that the community has for her. The best definition that I had was from one of her long-term friends, Steph Dahlstrom, and she said she was a woman that exuded the utmost humility, and that is Margaret. And so I think the outreach that the community has provided, wanting to name the middle school after her, is tremendous. It comes from every single corner of this community, which says a lot. And so I hope the commission will do so also. So that being said, I'd like to move to approve the letter to the Grand County School District in support of naming the new middle school after Superintendent Margaret Hopkin.
Thank you, Chris. Seconded by Sarah. Discussion. All in favor? Yes.
I just, with missing Jay Lynn here, I tried to comb through this, and I had a couple notes about just some minor edits, but now I'm not finding where they went.
Tricia Dean found them and fixed them before we got it.
Oh, great. Maybe that's why I'm not finding them now.
Wait, Mary, I missed who offered the motion. Tell me who made the motion again, please.
The motion was made by Tricia Dean and it was seconded by Sarah Stock.
Thank you.
And Hot Clapper screaming from the background that he approves it as well. And so with that, call the vote.
Call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Passes unanimously. Quinn, you surprised? Approving master equity lease agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management and approval schedule for four Ford F-350 trucks. Cody McKinney and Chris Baird.
So because we've got 4 new commissioners, you probably haven't heard the 101 on this fleet program. We invited Enterprise to just give another little simple 101 version of how this all works for the new commissioners. So Kyle and Paul, if you want to just take it away for a bit there.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And we'll make sure to keep it short and simple. To start, I want to thank everyone. So everyone from Cody to Chris, Christina, and Quinn for working with us over the last 6 months. We're here today, as Chris mentioned, to give a brief overview of what we've been working on and ask for approval to move forward with implementing the program. So to start, I wanted to give you a brief overview of who Enterprise Fleet Management is. And the easiest way to do that is to tell you about our sister company, Enterprise Rent-A-Car. We're a family-owned company and have been for over 60 years. We've grown to have over 2.3 million vehicles worldwide. We currently have 60 fleet management locations. Paul and I are actually joining from northern Utah. I'm in West Jordan and he's in Sandy, Utah. But essentially what EFM does is take all the industry knowledge and expertise from running a fleet of that size, and we lend it out to our clients. Currently, we actually partner with Enterprise Fleet Management actually partners with over 1,100 state and local government municipalities. And the government sector is actually the largest growing section of our business. I wanted to show, here are a couple examples of who we currently partner with in Utah and Idaho. And one thing to note is that all of these different entities, they ran their vehicles or ran their fleet very similarly. And it's very common for individuals and commercial entities alike to believe that the best way to maximize their front end price is to run vehicles until, essentially the wheels fall off. And on an individual level, that might be the case. But for commercial fleets and especially government entities, we help them look at things from a different perspective. And because of the state purchasing agreement and the ability to buy off the state contract, taking a deeper look at all the costs of running a vehicle is definitely necessary.
Yeah, and Kyle's done a great job of working with Cody, especially over the last half a year here at the county's fleet, and just trying to really nail down how we could potentially save some money, add efficiencies, and address a bunch of aging vehicle concerns, which lead to safety concerns and productivity concerns. And the main thing that we do as an organization is help private entities and governments really nail down one of the key components of running a fleet, which is how long do you keep your vehicle for? And because government entities can buy off the state contract at $5,000 to $10,000 less than Joe Public can, it definitely changes the math equation associated with it. And with COVID and some manufacturer industry restrictions that are going on right now, there's a huge opportunity for a lot of entities out there to take advantage of an exceptionally high and historically high used car market. So we've been working with Cody and his team to evaluate where the county stands right now with their vehicles and put together a plan that would allow them to work within the confines of their historical and current fleet budgets to actually create savings for the county of $370,000 over the next 10 years. And to enter into that method of
Did he freeze on your guys' end too?
Yeah, he froze on mine.
No worries. I think he was pretty much finished, but essentially the way we look at things is a little bit different than most entities to start. And in partnering with Enterprise, we have the industry knowledge, the expertise, and the ability to assist in running the fleet as efficiently as possible. And Cody and I have worked on creating analysis and making sure that this is the best thing for the county, and making sure and in working with Chris and Christina and Quinn as well. We feel like this is a great program for you guys to undertake, and we look forward to hopefully implementing it. Thank you.
This might be more of a question for Cody, but maybe you know Kyle as well. As there was a question that came up before. San Juan County had possibly run into some lease. They were out of the lines of the agreement by bumping around on dirt roads or scratching trucks up or anything. And one possible solution was having a smaller separate fleet for that kind of stuff. And I just wanted to circle back around to that idea and see where we're at with that.
Yeah, so I mean, I've worked very closely with Mac McDonald over there at San Juan, and right now they're on hold just based on COVID coming up and their resources being reallocated towards different sanctions of their entity. But as far as conversations with myself, that was not a concern with our method of leases. There's no wear and tear charges or penalties per se.
But the condition of the vehicle does, dictate its resale value, which factors back in, to us being able to pay that reserve off. And so, it's, the faster, the idea is basically to use the vehicles to the point where they're on parity with fair market value on the open market and sell it at that point, and so obviously if you beat them up, and it gets, cause the price to go, the fair market value to get below, what we bought it for, then we're going to lose this money, and it's not a, ideal situation. But we haven't really established a determined position that we're going to replace every single vehicle in the whole county yet, and we may hang on to some beaters for that purpose. It's all up to us.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it, is there's no set in stone. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kyle, but yeah, that's the whole thing. From just looking at what the fleet's been doing for the last 5-6 years, there's really not a whole bunch of wear and tear that happens. We have our fender benders, and we do have, especially in the sheriff's department, there could be some major accidents that happen. A lot of that kind of stuff, it's unforeseen, but in the long run, even the fleet that we're running with the sheriff's department, some of these vehicles are 7, 8, 9 years old. They've got over 100,000 miles on them, and they're still, we're putting those back into play right now to get us through this, so to speak, shortage that we're having right now. So I really foresee the vehicles lasting, and I really foresee us getting the said potential equity back out of them, whether we run a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. It's completely open-ended how long we could keep them. That's just the input coming from the fleet management anyway.
Yeah, and then sorry, not to interrupt anyone, but just to speak on that a little bit, we definitely, one of the best parts of our program is we give you an account manager to, make sure they're meeting with you at least 4 times a year and making sure that we're on par with what we're projecting. And if we need to extend out the lease, we're more than willing to do that if that's what's best for the county. And if you are in a negative equity position, we can always readjust and extend that lease out or increase depreciation, or we can adjust as we find out more and as we implement the program.
And what about, I know we get a lot of the like aftermarket beds and, mount lights on a lot of these things, and that's all standard procedures. And would we get those work beds from you guys, or would that still be something we were going out to bid for elsewhere?
So we are able to, and I've worked with Cody on, putting in place a plan to be able to make sure we're getting those vehicles equipped with the, aftermarket equipment, like you mentioned, prior to the vehicles arriving at your location. So when you receive these vehicles, they are turnkey and ready to go. We are utilizing a lot of the same resources that you currently are using. So like for the Sheriff's Department, we're using Premier, which is your vehicle installer. And for the most part, we'd like to continue using the entities that you guys are currently using to make sure that this is a smooth rollout and you are getting exactly what you're expecting when that vehicle arrives.
And I'm sorry that I had a little bandwidth issue, so I'll leave my video off to save the bandwidth. But long story short, all the analysis that Cody and Kyle have been working on and the cost saving projections include that aftermarket equipment in there. That is part of that proposal. And then in addition to kind of, I guess, address Evan's question, this isn't your traditional dealership lease with the wear and tear penalties. And because of the government purchasing program and the state contract, it allows you guys to be in an equity position right out the door. And if anything does change throughout the life of the vehicle, or if budgets change and adjustments are needed to the strategy, you can continue to run that vehicle with the same life cycle that you would in a purchase situation. And it's around the same cost of what you guys would be paying if you purchased it outright under the state contract from a dealer.
Cody, do you see any other loose ends with this and just kind of not just this, but the whole fleet management?
Yeah. So Evan, so that's some of the biggest hangups that we kind of had. Chris and Christina kind of went to head a little bit with the team at Enterprise, mostly with the legalities. I know that there is a little bit of bad taste in our mouth with the previous lease agreement that we had. Needless to say, that really did benefit the county greatly until it kind of all came to a head. What I'm really looking at is, as Kyle and Paul were talking about, is this 10-year projected. It's kind of going to step, I really think it's going to step the county into kind of the 21st century of how a fleet operation should work. It's a amazing team that is going to kind of back us throughout all this. So I really think that if we do have any hangups, we're going to have a team there to kind of show us what the trends are, maybe what the analysis are going to show, when we need to get rid of vehicles, the best potential of what vehicles we maybe need to be looking at purchasing or leasing. So I mean, to answer your question, Evan, I really think it's kind of the total deal. I think it's going to really step us up where we need to be for safer vehicles and a more efficient run fleet.
How does the commission get one of these F-350s?
Oh, and then so this isn't just F-350s. I know it says that on there, but this is a completely evolved fleet. Everything from the fleet cars that sit down at the courthouse, all the road department trucks, that would be F-350.
So actually, I did want to go over, Cody, if we can, the schedules.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'll just share the screen with them so that we can go over them. I don't think they quite made it in the packet, so I want to make sure we get them up. And then we can kind of explain I initially heard F-350s, but I see schedules for F-250s also.
Yeah, so Chris, just to talk to that a little bit, I sent you the ones for the F-250 and the F-350. The reason why I sent those ones over to you specifically is because we are coming up on the cutoffs for Ford. So we want to make sure that these are in front of you, and we are looking at it prior to that cutoff that we talked about, tomorrow, actually.
Yeah, and so I wasn't necessarily expecting to approve a schedule, but I guess if we want to get these Fords, then we're going to have to do it tonight. So just to explain, the master agreement kind of, establishes all the rough parameters, but it doesn't actually purchase any vehicles or establish any real leases. And so the schedules are what does that. And so, this is what we've got here. So I guess a question for you guys and Cody also is how these prices compare with the estimates that we were looking at last year for these same vehicles. Have you analyzed that?
So we purchased a vehicle for the weed department. It fell into the gas engine also, but I believe it was 40. I want to say it was in the 46,000 range. I mean, you don't quote me on that, but this F-350 chassis that's on the screen right now, XL 4-wheel drive crew cab, that's pretty well the standard. If we were looking at an F-250, F-350, this is pretty well the standard that we're going to buy. Buying them off the state contract, when we go in there, depending on the options, they're anywhere from 42 to about 46,000. Now, those are not loaded trucks either. Those are going to be a basic power windows, power locks. The diesel, of course, is going to add. Are you scrolling that down just so everybody can see?
Yeah.
But and then the particular on this one, it's showing a flatbed, which are your extra options. The road department, when we do a truck, we'll buy it as a cabin chassis, we'll do a bed delete, and then we're going to add in the extra equipment, which would be a flatbed, a crane, a hoist, different measures of that. Now, a flatbed for $8,000, it's probably going to be more in the range of $4,000. However, if you add a hoist in there on top of that, that's going to be upwards of where you run into the $7,000 to $8,000. With a lot of this equipment, the potential of using, especially the extra options, not necessarily the flatbed itself, but the hoist or toolboxes or things of that nature, depending on when we get ready to sell that. Actually, Kyle, are you scrolling that or who's scrolling that?
I am. I'm just trying to look at it.
Can you scroll up just a little bit, Chris? Go up, right there. Invoice versus MSRP. So the invoice at $43,985 versus the MSRP of $46,330. Like I say, if I was to spec one out, and we kind of did this, in fact, Evan, I think you were on when it was still the council, when we came in and did that trail mix truck. Do you remember the trail mix truck that we did? That was just a gasoline truck. It didn't really have any bells and whistles. I think that truck was around $36,000.
Yeah, so I will just kind of note that invoice price is pre-incentive dollars, and the amount at the top includes the total capitalized costs at the top of this quote is inclusive of the flatbed of $8,000. So if you look at if you wanted to hop to the F-250, that will show you kind of a more, this is just the truck minus the flatbed. So it shows you a almost $35,000 vehicle. And that's the price of a truck without the additions of, any aftermarket equipment.
Yeah.
And we did include $1,000 per vehicle on both of these for the resale of the vehicles that me and Cody have been going over. That is a very, very conservative estimate. We're expecting to be in the $4,500 range on a per vehicle basis. So we'd be expecting about $4,500, but we wanted to make sure this was as conservative as possible to show you guys for the first time.
Okay, and how many of these each are we talking tonight?
So the 1 ton is, so the F-350, we're looking at 1. And on the 3/4 ton, so the F-250, we're looking at 3. So a total of 4.
So 1 3/4 and 3 half tons, F-250.
Sorry, so
3/4. 3/4. Okay.
yeah, 3/4, 3, 1 ton, 1.
All right. You good with all these, Cody?
Yeah, I mean, and again,
Who are these going to? Which departments?
so one of them's going to the road department, one of them's going to the OSTA, one of them's going to the weed department, and the third one was a toss-up between the sheriff's department. I did talk to the sheriff, and I think they're okay. So the other one could possibly go either back into the road department or the, I mean, whatever the department could. Probably building maintenance would be the next best option for one of those.
But I guess, the question I was asking before was really relative because we used an estimate on these vehicles to establish a budget in each department. And so the question I'm asking, Cody, is how does this these pricings relate to that estimate we got last year?
It should be
that
right.
we used for budgeting.
It should be right in mind because the road department was wanting 1, OSTA was wanting 1, the building maintenance needed 1.
Cody, I actually have the rundown of each one. So building maintenance, OSTA, airport, and then road. So the 250s go to building maintenance, OSTA, and airport, and then the road department gets that 1 ton or F-350.
And then again, just circling back to my question relative to how we budgeted, how does this compare to the estimates we were looking at last year that we used to budget?
Very similarly. So if we are looking at, so 607 is your total monthly on the F-250. My price when I sent it over was 645 estimated monthly. Is that what you're referring to, Chris? Just
because we used your estimates from last year to build the budget for this program. So
Okay.
I'm just trying to ascertain if in the actual purchase of these leases, if we're within budget. That's my question.
Yes, sir. I totally understand. So Chris, with the estimates, I had 645 for the estimates on the 250s. Right here, we're at 607. And then on the F-350 for the road department, we're at 822. And the F-350, I don't have pulled up. Would you mind switching back to the F-350 just so we can? Yeah. And that's 724. So we fall under on both for all departments. We fall under the estimated monthly that I had sent to you prior.
Okay.
For those 4 specific vehicles.
All right. So it sounds good, within budget, according to plan. So I guess the motion for the commissioners would be to approve the let's see, the master, is it master equity lease or master lease equity? I can never remember.
Master equity lease, you got it.
So approve the master agreement with the, I guess, the approval of these 4 vehicle leases
Madam Chair,
that we've discussed here.
Evan?
I would move to approve the master equity lease agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management and approve schedules for the 4 Ford trucks discussed tonight.
Motion by Evan Clafford. Do we have a second? I'm not seeing everybody. Yeah, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second. This is Kevin.
Okay, Kevin, seconds. Motion by Evan, seconded by Kevin. Discussion. A lot of work.
Yeah, and just give mention to Christina too. She did a lot of work on this, so that was helpful.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yes, Gabe?
Yeah, I'm excited for the county, the folks working in the county departments to get some fresh rides. I will say, I do oftentimes notice that there can be public perception problems with working in, if we're going to have more often and more consistently have brand new shiny county vehicles. And I would just say it would be a good thing to keep in mind and to make sure to direct and educate county staff to be able to be in the position to educate the public when it is appropriate, that we have a fleet vehicle system that and saving money long term productivity. So just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty important to point out that the power in this is our cooperative purchasing and government contracting ability. If we couldn't get a good deal on these, this kind of a system wouldn't make a lot of sense. And so, we use that equity that we gain from the cooperative purchasing agreements, and drive them until that's on parity, and then sell them and get another one and do it over again. And in some cases, if you do it right, your actual costs for driving these new vehicles is very low.
Yeah, and Gabe, I'll just chime in and say one of our missions is to make sure that we're being a good steward to the community as well, and making sure that not only are we providing cost savings to the county, but communicating why we're here and why we're doing it. So the account manager that we provide you guys based here in Utah is really critical in helping you guys analyze the cost savings, making sure you're on track for what you projected, as well as we do provide press release and case study availability for you guys. So we've done a lot of them recently with some school districts that had very similar community perception concerns. Our message is we want to tell people that we're saving the county a lot of money and that we have newer, safer, more productive vehicles. So we will absolutely be able to create a press release for you guys with some of the numbers when they come to fruition, and as well as announcing the program if you'd like as well.
That would be great. That would be great.
Shall we
Kevin?
vote?
Yes. I call for any further discussion? Call for a vote. All in favor? All opposed? Passes unanimously.
All right. Thanks, you guys. Thanks, Cody.
I want to move item Q out of the consent agenda and discuss it right now. Approving resolution supporting the removal of the uranium mill tailings near the Colorado River in Moab, Utah. We did this resolution before, and it's to show that not only does Grand County want to have the pile removed from the Colorado River in a reasonable amount of time, and thus to give enough money, appropriate enough money to the project that it can be done. And it was very effective when it was Governor Herbert that signed it before. And when it hit me that we had a new governor, I felt we needed to have state approval that yes, we want this moved very fast and very quickly. And thus we just revised the old resolution, and we will give it to the Hinkins and Watkins, and it will hopefully get to the governor's desk, because it helps a great deal when we are lobbying with our United States senators and Congress people when they see the governor's signature. Sarah.
Mary, thank you for bringing this resolution and for all that you've done to get that pile moved. It's amazing. And I would really love to sign this. My main concern was brought to me today. We all got a comment from Michael Atkinson talking about basically the concern that this letter isn't requesting enough to actually get the project done within the timeline. And he was quoting the Department of Energy estimates that an additional 520 million, between 520 million and 550 million would be required beyond fiscal year 2019 to complete the project by 2029. And I don't know, I did the math dividing that for those 10 years, and that would be between like 52 million and 55 million. So it's kind of like a small point, but it seems like.
When we started lobbying, we had 36.
Uh-huh.
Now we're up to 48.4, I believe, or 5. And with that additional, we have been able to greatly increase. We are removing 1 million tons of tailings yearly. Now, they always don't, in public, they want to be extremely conservative, but if we continue at this rate, we will have all the tailings moved by 2025.
Wow.
Because we're moving 1 million a year, and we only have 4 million left, 4 to 5 million. So we're in the process of figuring out how we're going to move from it being, how can the Department of Energy leave it so it can be rehabilitated easily and turned into a beautiful place for Grand County. And we're already starting that work. I sent this information to Grand Junction, to Russell McAllister and Honora Thompson, and asked them to explain to me where Mike's getting his numbers and why he has a totally different idea. I re-looked at the resolution, and it's not to be specific about the amount. It's more to say we want it funded to the extent that it can be removed in a quick and effective way.
Mm-hmm.
If they keep, now they're increasing it without us even asking, which is beautiful. When we went to Washington, D.C. last time, we asked them, we said, let's just maintain it. Don't adjust for inflation, but don't lower it, because then that causes all sorts of problems. And then they have been on their own appropriating more every year. And this year was the first year that this project, since it began, was a line item in the president's budget. So it was meant not to be like real specific on the numbers.
So one possible reason that that people are coming to different conclusions with the numbers is that it does seem that we move things much more efficiently with a larger annual budget. So there's a certain fixed annual cost there. And so, if we were going to fund it at 36 million a year, yeah, maybe it would take 500 million to get it done. But when we get up, to higher numbers, we can actually, the overall price goes down if we're spending more per year. And I didn't look carefully at that email, but possibly that was why he was coming to a different conclusion.
Yes, and he's critical. He's critical. This is not, you can ask Quinn, he's critical. He's going to nitpick on anything and everything I do.
Well, the source he's using is the Department of Energy's report that they made to Congress about the mill in October. So, I can see why he's confused about just the different projections for funds needed. And I sent the stuff to Honora and to Russell, but we got it late to, when I saw it, and they did not have the time to get back to me why there was this discrepancy. But they did say that they will get it to me as soon as possible, and I can report back to the commission. I would like this to pass tonight just because it's timely. The legislators are starting, this week, and we want to get it on their table and get the governor's signature to help us
when we go back to talk, because we have to go back or do Zoom meetings because everything's going to change. We're not going to have the same people at the Department of Energy. We're not going to have the same people in offices. It's going to be a whole new group of people that we have to make sure that this project stays on the radar.
Well, I haven't been following this that closely, and I only had a short time to review also. So I mean, I trust your work, Mary, and working with these other folks to come up with that number. I would maybe just leave it open that if research comes back and we should actually request more like $52 million instead of 45, that we would be able to make that change in the letter while passing the resolution tonight.
I don't understand. Yeah, it's just, we're already getting, we're improving. Yeah. So we can put that in the motion if we want.
I don't think we have to put in the motion. It's just we're just asking them to get this concurrent resolution or whatever it is going. And if 2 weeks from now we discover that it needs some minor tweak, we can let them know then.
Okay. Yeah. Because I had to do a minor tweak because we didn't have last time 4 or 5 years ago for something, but it was more wording or numbers. Mm-hmm. So we can do that. Okay.
Thank you for all your work on this, Mary.
You're welcome. Thank you. Can't wait to sit on, and we have a beautiful park for everybody to enjoy. It's a gorgeous location.
With that, I move to approve the concurrent resolution requesting the Department of Energy to adequately fund the Moab Uranium Mill Tailings Remedial Action Project.
Motion by Sarah, seconded by Evan. Discussion? I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes unanimously. We are now to the consent agendas. Consent agenda, ratifying the chair's signature on a 2021 cooperative agreement with the National Children's Alliance for Children's Justice Center grant, approving the Dolores River Restoration Partnership Memorandum of Understanding, and approving thank you letter to San Juan County Commissioners for Rally on the Rocks denial. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agendas? Evan?
So moved.
A motion by Evan. Do I have a second? Seconded by Trish. Discussion? Call for a vote. All in favor of approving the consent agenda?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes unanimously. We are to discussion on redistricting process. Kevin Walker.
Okay. I'll try not to take too long since we're getting toward the end of the meeting and people are tired. But as you all know, every 10 years we're supposed to redraw our districts for reasons I don't understand. That actually hasn't actually happened in Grand County for the past 30 years, but this time I think we are going to do it. We'll get new information from the Census Department sometime later this year. As has been pointed out on previous calls, we probably want to also think about any state district boundaries that might intersect the county, though hopefully that will not happen because it doesn't really make sense to split Moab in half. And so in the packet, I outline a process which I hopefully will lead to a reasonable result and also be perceived as fair and open by the public. And maybe we'll just go over it quickly now. We can talk about this more in the future. So the big requirement on redrawing districts is that they have equal population, but that by itself doesn't tell you exactly what districts to draw. There's many possible ways we could do it with equal population. And you can think, something that people worry about quite a bit in redistricting is giving some kind of partisan advantage. And one can imagine in this big universe of possible district maps we could draw, if it were possible to evaluate partisan advantage, you'd have some kind of bell curve where maybe most of them would tend to give, this many seats to one side and this many seats to another. But if they're drawn very carefully, you could push that one way or the other. And so the tails of this bell curve, sorry, I don't have a slide here. Those are the things that might be considered gerrymandered. And so the goal of this process is to avoid doing that and to land ourselves in the middle of where the bell curve is. Now, when this is done at the state level, people are able to evaluate pretty precisely what kind of outcome various redistricting plans might give, because you have all this precinct by precinct historical voting data, and each of the proposed, say, state house districts contains many separate precincts. And so you've got some idea. That's not available to us in Grant County because our precincts are about the same size as our districts and they're not going to align directly. So I think no one's going to have like any sort of precise notion of, of how a proposed districting map stacks up in this way. But I think what we can do is if we produce, say, a dozen candidate maps, either submitted by the public, submitted by political parties, submitted by our consultants, that gives us a collection. Think of it as, this bell curve, and then we can ask people, the public and included in the public, the Republican Party and Democratic Party, which of these maps seem biased to you? And that will help us, eliminate the ones that, a significant number of people think are biased. And then hopefully what's left over at the end are the unbiased maps, and we can choose one of those. So that's the rough outline of a, so Chris, did you just raise your hand?
Oh yeah, well, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the voting precincts are combined to make the commission districts. So the boundaries are exactly the same.
No, I was talking about the old voting precincts to have the historical data. So if we draw a new district and it intersects 4 of our old precincts, we wouldn't be able to say exactly, we wouldn't be able to evaluate that district very accurately because it doesn't align with the old precincts. I agree with you. Our new precincts should align with the voting districts.
All right. So yeah, because there is limits, to the number that we can have in precincts. I think 1,250 or something like that. But yeah, it's an interesting question, actually. I think that in state races, for instance, the reason, why you might claim, or somebody might claim that Moab was gerrymandered is because anytime you have a dense concentration of, some particular political affiliation, it's going to have more effect, obviously, if they're all in one district than if you cut them in half and separate their power, which is what sort of happened to Grand County and Moab. And then there's the other side of the coin, where you might, I don't know if anybody's asked or polled, but I think that one of the big reasons for having districts versus all at large is to encourage diversification. And if you drafted districts that had equal party affiliation statistics among them all, or as close as you could possibly get, I guess I'm kind of just wondering, is that really encouraging diversification on the commission, or is it actually having the opposite effect? Because I think the issue of political gerrymandering is different in a countywide scenario like us versus perhaps maybe versus, state districts and the gerrymandering that happens when you split entire communities. But I don't know. These are just things I'm asking. It's kind of difficult to understand how to accomplish an objective if you don't really state what your objective is. So, I mean, the first question is asked, what's the value of districts? What are we trying to achieve with them?
We can ask that, but we are going to have districts regardless.
Well, no, I get that, but I guess the question is if we're going to draft them in a way that is, you would want to draft them such that you accomplish the objective that the citizens have for.
So you mentioned diversity, and there's different kinds of diversity. There's geographic diversity, which I think is important, like when planning and zoning decisions, for example. And I think the districts will definitely do that unless we draw them in some kind of crazy shape. So that we don't want like all 7 of us to live within the Moab city limits. And yet we're making P and Z rules for people who live outside the city limits and don't affect us. I mean, that's something we want to avoid. And I guess one way of avoiding that is making sure that some of the districts are outside of city limits. I mean, I think we saw an example of that where, Trish seemed very much in tune with people living out in Spanish Valley this evening because she lives there. And that, that vote might have been different if none of us lived out in Spanish Valley. So that's one thing we're trying to accomplish. But I think there's also, there is sort of a partisan divide in the county, and we want people to feel that they have a fair shot. So there's that different kind of balance, and those are not exactly the same thing. So.
Yeah, I guess I have a hard time understanding where you draw the line between trying to accomplish that objective and having somebody accuse you of gerrymandering. Because if you're actually trying to provide a consolidation of power such that somebody could get elected according to that particular objective, somebody might see it as gerrymandering too. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's just worth looking in to, establishing an objective, a basic objective of what are we trying to accomplish with districting, and then use that as our framework for launching some action, and I think because we didn't really ask that question when at the polls or anything that I'm aware of, it might be something to try to get some more information from the citizens who voted for districts. Why did you vote for them? What is the objective you're after? And then we can use that information to help us along, I think.
Yeah, no, and I think that definitely fits with what I'm proposing. I think we should be accepting a lot of public comment throughout the process. And part of that comment, could be it could be a specific map. It could also be just some goals that we should be after. So I think that fits, but we do have a time, this has got to happen this year. And so I guess all I'm proposing, there's no action item this evening, but I'm hoping maybe next meeting, if people are agreeable, we can at least engage the consultants who can provide us all the technical tools we think we're going to need to go through this exercise. So I guess that's the big question tonight is, should we at the next meeting have an action item to engage these people? And I can say more about, these consultants versus other consultants that people like, but.
Okay.
So we need an RFP?
Well, how much do we budget for redistricting? I can't remember. I'm the budget.
10,000.
How much?
10,000.
And so, I mean, technically, I guess if at that level, I mean, up to 9,999, we can just solicit 3 quotes. We don't have to go to a sealed bid. So I guess if we reserved $1 of that 10,000, we wouldn't have to go out to RFP. According to our current purchasing policy, I mean, you always have the ability to waive policy, but it's not a great practice to do for purchasing and finances.
I think it's a good policy to get a few quotes at least, even if we don't put out an official RFP. If we got 3 bids, that would make me feel a little better.
3 bids.
So are you aware of multiple consultants, Kevin, or just?
Well, I know, I mean, there's these people, and then I'm also aware of the name's escaping me, but he's the guy who worked with the study committee.
Mm-hmm.
And I could probably find one more.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine if this is something that's required to be done every 10 years, that a lot of other people are looking to farm it out or get help with it.
Okay, so
is it actually required, or is it just recommended that we do it every 10 years?
I think it's required because the the equal population districts. I guess if it just turned out that our population didn't change and the same old districts would work, that'd be fine. But
well, there isn't actually anything in state code that relates to that, and usually elections, I think that Christina called out some federal case law or something that brings that up, but I'm not aware of anything in state code that calls out those kinds of things. They're actually remarkably lacking for a lot of detail on these kinds of things.
Yeah,
And of
I mean,
course,
I guess,
we've seen a few U.S. Supreme Court cases, one dealing with gerrymandering and some other elections issues, and they just flat declined to accept them. And so the U.S. Supreme Court obviously sees most election matters, including districting, to be strictly state related. And I'm just not aware of any state law that does anything but say that we can't have more than 1,250 in a single voting precinct.
My understanding is that the court precedent is that we actually, if the population of our districts is not within a 10% of each other, then that's in violation of, I think, federal cases. And our current districts are very far outside that. So,
but anyway, yeah, I think that if you could just maybe touch base with the consultants that you're aware of, at least 3, and see if we can get some proposals from them for the next meeting, I think we might be ready to go with choosing one of them.
okay, so we just need 3 different proposals and then we can choose next meeting, is that?
Yeah, and I mean, at this point, just basic. They don't have to, we're not, it's not a big enough project to require a full RFP and everything, but if we can get 3 proposals from these folks for redistricting consulting work, then we can put it on the agenda and try to get going with it.
Okay. That sounds good to me.
Thank you for taking the lead on this, Kevin. This is an important thing, very important. So thank you. Are we ready to move to the next discussion item, calendar and special events?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't have a lot going on. We previously were discussing an MBA meeting for this evening, but that took a little longer, and it's going to be on February 2nd, where the MBA will be reviewing an easement for the EMS building. And the only other thing, and I haven't caught up on all of my emails, so Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but as of now, on January 30th, we do have the Arches Ultra Marathon scheduled. And it looks like mid-February, February 13th, there's the Red Hot Marathon, half marathon. But outside of that, I don't think that there's much else to report tonight.
So yeah, along the lines of those events, at this point, they're restricted to 250 persons total. And so they're going to be pretty low key due to that restriction.
Also, Chris, this is Elaine. If I could weigh in, I have a Zoom call scheduled with all the event sponsors on Monday, January 25th, to review the ordinance and the health order and to go over everything. So we've contacted today every event sponsor, those that have placed applications and those who had placed applications for events in the past. So we just want to make sure that everyone has a clear understanding of the procedure and the process, so there are no questions.
Thank you, Elaine. Any other questions from the commission? Okay, we will move to our public hearing. Public hearing to solicit input regarding vacation of the portion of 7 Mile Flat Road, number 1940, a County D road located through real property known as parcel number 04-00200088 and 04-XST-0067. Bell Jackson. Are you muted, Bill?
Can't hear you for some reason.
Can't hear you.
You might have to call in on your phone or something. Call the number, maybe. We can't hear you. You're not muted. It doesn't show you're muted, but we can't hear you.
There might be a microphone volume, but I wouldn't be able to tell you how to find it.
Go. Can we reorder things a little bit and let someone else speak while Bill's working with the microphone?
Yeah, we could speak if there is something we wanted to speak about, because I will want someone to make a motion after this public hearing to go into closed session to discuss possible litigation.
So should we see if there's anyone here to speak at the public hearing?
Is there anyone?
How about, hey, Mary, how about if I just try to present it using the agenda summary?
You can.
And then I think,
you
oh,
can
go ahead.
Some weird.
I think Rick York is here to speak about it. Is that correct, Rick?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I'm one of the property owners, and Brian Hayes, I think, is on the screen too, and he's the other one that this road runs across. What used to be all Intrepid property, we've sold some of it to Brian. The county has not had an interest in the road or anything else, has not been present for the last 30-something, 40 years on that road. It's not maintained. It's just along a power line right away. So we discussed it with Christine and with Bill, and all decided it might be best is to abandon or vacate the road. So that's the way you heard it, Brian?
Oh, we can't hear Brian either. So the background reads 7 Mile Flat Road is a dead-end dirt road. The portion of the road to be vacated commences at the private property line near the State Road 313, mile marker 21, that heads south approximately 1.5 miles into the Box Canyon south of 7 Mile Wash, and terminates in private property previously owned by Intrepid Potash Incorporated and most recently owned by the applicant.
It's currently owned by Intrepid Potash.
Oh, it is? So
Yeah.
This is accurate in the agenda summary. So is the applicant going to purchase it?
The most of the road still would remain as Intrepid's. It does cross some land that we just sold to Brian Hayes, or the Red Earth venue, which is listed on the application, I believe. Anyhow, but the rest of the road will remain as on Intrepid's property. We have some people that are interested in buying it, but they haven't crossed all the hurdles yet as far as zoning and that type of thing. So anyhow, but for this transaction or this public hearing and what's been proposed here, what are we calling it? Something in the paper there, but anyhow, for what's going on tonight, it's basically Intrepid property and Red Earth venue property and a road that hasn't been maintained by the county for forever, basically. I don't think anybody knew it was a county road until we tried to go through with the transaction, and there it was. And it looks like Mr. Jackson's back on with a mute button, so.
Now you have to unmute somehow, Bill.
Does he have to hit *6?
Yes, I think he joined by phone as well. So *6 should work.
Can you hear me now?
You gotta turn off your speakers on your computer. Mute your speakers on your computer. All right, well,
Might have a volume key on your keyboard.
Mallory, can you mute Bill, please?
Muted.
All right, so I think we've actually covered it sufficient to hold this public hearing. So Mary, if you want to just call for public comments, and then we'll act on this at the first meeting in February, and we can get more technical glitches worked out then. But at this point, we're just holding a public hearing. So I think we've covered the details enough to hold the public hearing.
Okay, this is a public hearing. The time is 7:46. Public hearing has opened. Do we have anybody from the public that would like to comment on this? Mallory? No one?
Is this in addition to Mr. York and Mr. Hayes?
Is there anyone else?
So let's, hey Quinn, maybe we can just roll Mr. York's comments in with the public hearing, and then Mr. Hayes, we couldn't hear you either. I think you've got the same issue as Bill there, where your sound wasn't coming across. But if you have any comments, we're going to leave this open right till next Wednesday at 5 p.m.
Yeah, until the 27th at 5 p.m. Wednesday, the 27th of January.
All right.
And comments to commission@grandcountyutah.net.
All right.
Any other comments?
All right. Thanks, you guys.
Okay.
Good, Mary.
I will close this portion of the public hearing. The time is 7:47. It will remain open to public comment until the 27th of January at 5 o'clock. Okay. Yes, Kevin?
I was going to move that we go into closed session in order to discuss possible or pending litigation.
Thank you, Kevin. Motion by Kevin. Do we have a second? Seconded by Evan Clapper. All in favor? Anyone opposed? We will go into closed session at 7:48.
How did you vote, Sarah? Aye?
Yes.
Okay.
Passes unanimously.
Oh, sorry. So let's wait for Mallory to cut off the YouTube stream.